Will, are you keeping, whoops, sorry. Are you keeping track of how many board members we have?
I am not. Rebecca Dangor, you have your hand up.
I am. I added a formula. So far, we're at 24.
Thank you.
I'll keep working on it.
This is why we just making your case right now.
I always do it. It's important to know we have a quorum. So.
It is. I think we do. But I'm not counting. Tell me when, Will.
We have it.
Give it one more moment. I just want to get a couple other things in order.
And please don't forget to text when you see any elected officials that are here.
I will. And I'm actually about to send you.
Oh, the public speakers.
Exactly. That's important. That was actually the thing I was asking you to wait on.
Ah, okay.
So I'm texting you the first list, and if there's anything that's added afterwards, know that I'll update you.
Okay.
There it is.
I see it. Did you hear that little ding-a-ling or whatever sound that is? I don't know what sound that is. Oh, a lot of people. Okay. Are we ready?
We are.
Okay. Then let's begin. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the November meeting of Community Board 8. I'm Alita Camp, and I'm chair of Community Board 8. So welcome, as I mentioned. Our program this evening involves public speakers. Each public speaker will have 2 minutes to address the board and everyone else who's here. And after that, we will have reports from the elected officials or their reps and then move into executive session. In the executive session, anyone who would like to speak from the public will not be able to unless you can get a board member to make your comment for you. I know it works very differently when we're in a public meeting live, but we're not. We're on Zoom, which has its benefits and its I guess failures would be a way to put it, but it's not really a failure. Anyway, we're glad to have Zoom and able to see each other, which is much more effective than a 50-person and more conference call, but that's neither here nor there. So welcome to our meeting, and we should begin. If you'd like to speak in the public session, please make sure that you've signed up by 6:45. Will text me your names. I'll read you in numbers of 3. When I read your name, please raise your hand, your virtual hand. It's under the participants menu. If you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see, as Will likes to describe it, 2 little figures, shoulders up, that says participants. If you click on that, you'll see the people who are actually in the meeting. And at the bottom of that are a number of little circles in colors. And there's a hand that says raise hand. If you click on that, your hand will be raised. You go to the top of the screen so that Will can see you and I can see you. Will unmute you and you'll have an opportunity to speak. So please don't forget to raise your hand. It makes the process easier. We'll get to the procedures for the full board votes when we get there in time. So thank you. Okay, at this point, why don't we begin with the public session, and let me just check the names. So again, when you hear your name, please raise your hand. We'll begin with Bond, and if I mispronounce your name, I'm terrible at this, so please forgive me. Bondalea Fall, Betty Cooper Wallerstein, and Adam Grumbach. If you could raise your hands, we'll unmute you one at a time, and you'll have a 2-minute limit, as I mentioned.
And if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand.
Bondalea Fall, Betty Cooper Wallerstein, and Adam Grumbach. I don't see any hands raised. Okay, while they're doing that, why don't we just go to the next couple of people and we'll come back to you so that we can keep this moving. Martin Bell and Susan Peters. Are you here? Okay, okay, so let's start with Marty Bell then.
All right. Marty, whenever you unmute, you'll have 2 minutes.
Hi, how are you? I'm here because I want to just express my disappointment, actually my outrage at the zoning committee's failure to take an appropriate action last night with respect to the proposed tower on the blood bank site. It's a 334-foot mid-block commercial building in a residential neighborhood. I think the blood bank played the committee like a fiddle and was a Trojan horse, talking about how great the blood bank is, which we all agree, but never getting to the commercial tower, which is a pure profit maker for a Boston developer. The committee website says it's supposed to address issues related to height, bulk, and size, and it should have been pretty simple because this is a 334-foot tower, mid-block, in a commercial residence that's zoned for 75 feet. And the committee members were, it was like I was in a bizarre world. Someone said, well, they should engage with Julia Richmond first. They could buy every kid a lollipop. It's still going to be a 330-foot floor commercial building. Someone said they should talk about, well, maybe they could have deliveries at night and stagger work hours. I mean, what world is that person living in? That's just not how commercial buildings are going to work. There were hundreds and hundreds of people who were unanimously opposed. I have screenshots I can share with you that show the only people for it were those there for the developer, and yet the committee at the end wants a wishy-washy letter, not saying that they were opposed, but saying that people in the community had concern. I just asked you to look at one thing. Thankfully, you posted the video at 36 minutes and 35 seconds. They show let me finish the one thought. They show a picture of a 45 square block area with the 18 tallest buildings marked. And they say, oh, look at our building. We're at the lower end of the range.
Hey, Marty, I would like you to leave your contact information. Please email it to Will. The chairs of the zoning committee will be in touch with you. I was at that meeting last night. I'm writing the letter, which will not be a wishy-washy letter, which is a better result than having, as we described it last night, a split vote on a resolution. You may have heard that there were people there from the board at the committee meeting who would not have voted in support of the resolution. And rather than have a split resolution, which would not have the impact of a letter, and having them come back and having a resolution one way or the other at the right time. We're very well aware of the community opposition, the community outrage, and the number of members of the community who were there last night. Please do not fear the community board not taking appropriate action. We will in a way that will have the most impact on the decision makers, on the city council members, on the borough president's office, and hopefully on the blood center. We understand there are a lot of issues, and we will be moving in an appropriate way in an appropriate time. Please leave your contact information so that, as I mentioned, so that the chairs of the Zoning and Development Committee could be in touch and talk about it. We will have a timeline. We will have the information on our website. We know and understand completely that the community is very distressed and opposes this building. And you're right, we didn't take a full count. We did a straw vote. The vast majority were opposed to it. We are well aware of concerns and objections and opposition. Again, I'm sorry that you were disappointed. Okay, let's move on to do we have Bondalea Fall, Betty Cooper Wallerstein, or Adam Grumbach, or Susan Peters here?
I see Susan Peters. I'm going to start with her. Everybody else, please
Okay.
raise your hand through the participants menu. Susan Peters, unmute yourself at the bottom of your screen. You
Okay.
have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I am a longtime resident of New York City and a member of a local group, NYC for Wired Tech. I wish to say a few words to alert all community members to a health danger in our neighborhood. The City of New York has approved all in one shot the installation of 11,500 wireless antennas on utility poles. You can see one on almost every corner. It's a rectangular box and it has an antenna coming out of it. I don't know if you can see the antenna, but that's what's on the corners. You can look for them, they're there. These house radio frequency antennas for wireless communication. But what is not informed to the public is the high levels of radio frequency radiation coming from the antennas. These levels are already causing residents of our city to move from their apartments where antennas have been installed on corners near their apartments. They are too sick to live where they are. Instead of New York City testing the power coming from the antenna, the FCC in Washington allows the telecom corporations to self-report the actual power. They are the fox in charge of the hen house. And I just want to say that recently the state of New Hampshire, the government of New Hampshire issued a report saying these antennas have come into question because of the thousands of peer-reviewed studies documenting deleterious health effects associated with cell phone radiation exposure. This is the state of New Hampshire saying, stop, we have to study this. City, thank you very much. Please contact me if you want more information.
Please make sure that you send your contact information to the office. We have both an Environment and Sanitation Committee and a Health, Seniors, and Social Services Committee who will be able to talk to you and review what you have and possibly put it on the agendas to look at. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, unless Bondalea Fall, Betty Cooper Wallerstein, Adam Grumbach, Bill Angelos, Tara Wilson, Anthony Barrett. If any of you are here, I see Adam is here. Okay, let's go to Adam then.
Adam, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Adam Grumbach. I'm with the Julia Richmond Education Complex, which is located directly across the street from the Blood Center. Our concerns with the Blood Center's proposed expansion are mainly around the shadow that was cast. Josh Satin, who was the building manager, spoke last night. They asked me to come tonight because I work with the building council. The shadows that the building will cast over St. Catherine's Park and our building in general, which we think are significant. But looking at the artist's rendering last night, the thing that struck me was the rendering of 67th Street. It looked as though it was a 3-lane boulevard that had all this room for traffic. Every day at Julia Richmond, there's a traffic backup when the school buses arrive in the morning to drop off the District 75 students on the autism spectrum with significant cognitive delays. And the buses have to jockey for position because there's parked cars on both sides of the street. The Blood Center will bring in, with this expansion, would bring tremendous amounts of increased traffic and would cause real safety problems for the buses attempting to drop off students with significant needs. In addition, just the construction for 4 years and the air quality problems would pose problems for some of our students, many of whom have asthma. And 4 years in the life of a student going to school is roughly the time they will spend in our school. So major construction is always a problem. Those are our main concerns, and that's why we are opposed to the Blood Center's expansion at this time. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. There's no vote on the Blood Center this evening, but I'm happy to hear from all of the residents and entities that have position and invite you to come back when we will post when there is a meeting. And with respect to the air quality, we will note it for the scoping and environmental impact statement. So thank you. Please make sure, I know that you are with JREC, that you leave your name with Will or
Thank you,
email.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Okay, I see that Tara Wilson and Anthony Barrett have their hands raised. So let's start with them before we go back. Tara?
Hi, I represent 333 East 66th Street. I'm a resident there. I attended the meeting last night, and I just wanted to mention that we're definitely concerned that tower will impact the light of our building's common rooftop, a place that was essential to the mental and physical health of our residents. Throughout COVID, our rooftop was used as a place for children to do schoolwork, adults to exercise and work from home, seniors to get access to sunlight and fresh air safely, and for families to share a meal. Having a 33-story tower loom over our common rooftop, block our sunlight, and it'll be incredibly detrimental to the mental and the physical health of the residents of our building. We don't understand whether our existing infrastructure can support the addition of several thousand more people on our block. We're concerned that the added stress that the building will add to our overall traffic streets. And as a responsible member of the community, the NYBC should consider the impact that the proposed tower will have on the streets that are being used to transport critically ill residents of this neighborhood to the hospitals that the NYBC serves. Streets that are already too congested because of Cross Park and 59th Street Bridge traffic. We have concerns about the noise and the air pollution, the debris, the disruption of our daily lives during the construction period. As our block will function as a service entrance for the building, we have concerns about the large amount of dangerous waste that will leave the blood center. And finally, there's a reason why the existing zoning laws are in place. It's meant to keep the integrity of the residential neighborhood. Compromising by allowing a huge mid-block tower is going to set a bad precedent for the rest of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. For everyone who is speaking or about the blood center or for any other reason, if you make sure that Will has your email address, you'll be on our mailing list and you'll get notifications of our meetings so that you can come back or make statements as appropriate. Thank you. Okay, I see Anthony Barrett. Anthony?
Hi, good evening. Unfortunately, I couldn't speak last night, and so I'll just say a few comments on the existing blood bank proposal. I serve as a board member at 301 East 66th Street, 200 unit, 17-story condo building that lies directly adjacent to the proposed development. Notwithstanding the immediate impact of this colossal structure right on our property line, I share a number of issues with respect to the proposal, including related to the mid-block zoning, which was established over 30 years ago by the residential neighborhood to prevent this type of abuse of our zoning laws. Its establishment was to maintain the context of our residential neighborhood and allow sun and light to penetrate the street. In agreement for that zoning change at the time, huge bulky buildings were allowed to be built at the block ends, and that's where we've been so far. Now we're going to disrupt the whole process. Specifically to this development, on 66th Street, there'll be a 4-foot setback for the entire length of 66th Street. Imagine a sheer street wall going up mid-block 330 feet, nearly 33 stories, 200 feet along, a full width of a narrow street. Existing mid-block allows a maximum street wall of 65 foot and an additional 10 foot after the required setback. The blood bank fails to even meet this requirement. You got to remember the size of the site. It's 200 by 225 feet. That's larger than the Empire State Building right now. The excessive height and impact it will have on the contextual out of this predominantly residential neighborhood cannot be disregarded. And then getting back to the sunlight and St. Catherine's Park and JREC, the presentation last night was, I believe, misrepresented, that they focused solely on the park. They did not include the playground for the kids. They did not include JREC. And those two areas will be much more severely impacted than the park itself, as the park is further east than the rest of the school. And I'm happy to submit my further comments to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, we invite everyone to come back when we will be taking a vote on the matter of the blood center. Thank you. Oh, please, Anthony, please make sure that your contact information is with the board office. Okay, trying again. Bondelia Fall, Betty Cooper Wallerstein. We now are looking at Bill Angelos and Matthew David. I see Matthew is up there. I hope that I'm getting the name in the right order. and Wendy McCaver. If you could raise your hands, please. Thank you. Okay. Will
We got
Matthew,
Matthew
David,
unmuted.
please.
Yeah. Matthew, you have 2
Thank you.
minutes.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, community members. I have a couple of quick comments. First and foremost, what struck me about the zoning request yesterday was that if you looked at the height requirements for the blood bank and the space they would occupy themselves, it was 4 floors, 20 foot, 2 16-foot, and a 24-foot floor. Their building requirements would fit in the existing zone space right now. The additional 9 floors and the entire added height above that would be for-profit, rented out to partners. It would not be used by the blood bank. Second, the project claims to be for the community improvement all around by bringing jobs. However, it would negatively impact everyone in the community who uses that park. The children during the summer when it's most used would have the greatest impact, up to 4 hours a day of shadow and reduced sunlight. This would destroy the community area for all who use the park and adjacent areas. And most importantly, if the blood bank is moving for 4 years during this planned construction to a facility that will meet their needs, why then do they need to move back to a facility with that much greater added space? Again, solely for the profit of this developer in an adjunct facility where the blood bank itself, our community neighbor, is not utilizing any of the space. Those were my points. Thank you guys for listening. I really hope we all do the right thing for the community and our neighbors.
Thank you again for everyone to make sure we have your contact information. Okay, Wendy, and then Andrew Ravaschiere and Domenico Aiello. I see that Will, there's a June Soto. June, are you here in place of someone who signed up?
Maybe they have a wrong name on their Zoom account.
Maybe it's
June.
someone else. Okay.
Well, June, could you identify yourself? You're unmuted. June? Person named June Soto. Nope, they muted themselves. So going on to Wendy. Wendy, you're unmuted. Go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Alita, we want to thank you for your leadership and advocacy on behalf of the people living in and doing business in Community Board 8. We very much appreciate your service. As New York tries to establish a new normal and going forth despite pandemic life, voters are seeing a renewal in applications for new building construction. We welcome sensible new construction. It is not only not sensible, but harmful when developers attempt a race to the sky in building monster tall buildings. Construction above the 210-foot level is responsible for an exponential increase in climate change pollution, as shown in data-driven studies. Tall buildings in New York City are responsible for 67 to 75% of all of our climate change pollution. This horrific increase in greenhouse gases causes a rise in asthma rates, cardiac disease, and flooding, and these are only a few of the effects that we're already seeing. Please note that climate change pollution disproportionately affects Black New Yorkers. For decades, New Yorkers have been given the false promise that tall real estate construction would provide better medical facilities, upgraded transportation, affordable housing, lower homeless rates, new senior centers, schools, and the like. Look around. This model of supposed developer incentives of trading height for citizen amenities has not and does not work. As we adjust to pandemic life, these false promises are again surfacing, whether in the context of upzoning, as of right manipulation, or unbridled variances. Meanwhile, affordable housing units are destroyed and not replaced. Neighborhood amenities are not being built. Permanent jobs are not created, but burdens on our city services, on our firefighters, our peacekeepers, our hospital beds, and our infrastructure increase at an escalating cost to working and middle-class CB8 voters. With every building built above the 210-foot height cap, even with remediation or LEED certification, the additional height creates climate change pollution that stays in our atmosphere for 300 to 1,000 years. The interaction between tall buildings creates an exacerbation of our heat island index. Just last night, oh, please, can I just finish the one sentence? just last night at the zoning committee meeting, 2 applicants for new construction well above the 210-foot height cap, let alone the lower mid blocks limits, had projects considered. It's ironic that these applicants are providers of medical care research, and yet if their projects were to go forward with the heights proposed, they would cause irreparable harm to our well-being. We're
Thank you, Wendy. For those who, thank you, Will. For those who may be new here, you understand, I hope that you understand that CB8 is working hard to get the area rezoned, those avenues east of 3rd and East to a 210-foot height limit. We're working hard on that. Okay. Andrew and then Nico. Oh, and June still has her hand raised. Let's go to Andrew and Nico and then see. Will?
I see Bill Angelos also is here, and he has his like button. I'll get to him afterwards.
Then let's go to Bill because he was higher up on the list, meaning
Bill
he signed up
was.
first.
Okay,
Thanks.
sorry, Andrew.
Yes. We know Andrew's got patience. He's listened to me mispronounce his name repeatedly.
Hello?
Yes, Bill.
Bill?
Oh, can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'd like to discuss regarding the follow-up yesterday's meeting regarding the blood bank. The blood bank scale, the building is out of scale for the community. It's a 334 foot. In my building, I'm located on 301 East 66th Street between 66th, 67th Street and 2nd Avenue is overlooking the blood bank. The scale of the building will block our sunlight and our views, and that we need to address the mental issue.
Wait. Bill, wait 1 second. Will, wait, stop the timer. I have to reconnect to my phone and I don't want to miss what Bill is saying. My internet connection is horrible right now. So let Bill in, please, and then we could get started again. And thank you everyone for your patience. I just don't want to miss any member of the public. Okay.
In the meeting, this meeting is being recorded. This meeting
May
all good.
May I continue?
Will, if you could start again with Bill, thank you.
Okay.
Just restart your 2 minutes. Go ahead and go.
Okay. The blood bank proposed building is a massive scale. It's a 334 foot building directly behind my building, which I'm located on 301 East 66th Street between 66th, 67th Street and 2nd Avenue, overlooking the back entrance of the blood bank. The blood bank can build the building as of right. The square footage as of right will be much more than the proposed development with the private developer. And they have not provided any impact analysis to my building, as well as neighboring buildings. I'd also like to address the variance that the requesting is not the blood bank. If the private developer is requesting a variance. With respect to the traffic on 67th Street, it's a major thoroughfare. It's a crosstown street into the west side. It's also used by the crosstown bus, and on 67th Street across the street from the blood bank, the school was heavily traffic used by school buses. Well, I mean, the whole purpose of the R8B is to preserve the integrity of the community, and it's contrary to the mid-block proposed development through the blood bank. The other life science buildings, Sloan Kettering had a low-rise building on 68th Street, seven-story building between 1st and 2nd Avenue. They have another medical laboratory on 64th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue. The blood bank can comply with the zoning along with the Sloan Kettering. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be looking at all of these issues that you and other residents in the neighborhood have raised. Thank you. Andrew and then Nico.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. And Alita, as long as you let me speak, you can pronounce my name however you want. Thank you for letting me come to your meetings and speaking about the need for a 210-foot height cap on all new developments immediately. And I am speaking about this goal with renewed urgency for the following two reasons. First of all, as many of us felt today, and as any Game of Thrones fans know, winter is coming. Today was really cold, and that is going to limit the amount of customers that restaurants who have been struggling during this pandemic can have to bring in revenue. The second development is that New York City public schools are going to be closed tomorrow because the COVID-19 positivity rate is above 3% citywide. And these two ingredients of change provide the perfect recipe for mom and pop shops, particularly restaurants, to lose customers and go out of business, and for luxury real estate developers to swoop in, buy a block of buildings at a time in order to gather air rights and race towards the sky, not including sufficient, if any, housing that is affordable, and ruining our environment for many years to come by contributing to climate change, which I know Wendy just spoke about. In addition, many people will be displaced from their homes, further exacerbating our homelessness crisis, which will worsen our city's spread of COVID-19 because shelters are a particular hotspot for COVID-19 transmission. This year has made clear that we need to make big, bold changes in the way that we structure our city. And this 210-foot height cap is an absolutely essential start. I urge CB8 to continue pushing forth on this height limit, and I look forward to helping out in any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you. We are, as I mentioned, really working hard to try and get that height limit. Thank you. Nico?
Nico, you just unmute yourself.
Hi, sorry about that. This is my first meeting, so first of all, thank you for your attention. I don't want to belabor the point too much since I know we've heard a lot of great points on this already today. But I just wanted to formally register my concern also for the New York Blood Center construction project. And to be clear, it's not opposing the Blood Center. You know, they do amazing work, and we fully support them wanting to renovate the building that they have. But I just want to reiterate some of the points that I think have already been made, specifically around this commercial rezoning mid-block, this extra 4 hours of shadow on the park nearby, and in particular the developer greed that is very clearly present in the construction project. You know, as was mentioned, it was actually mentioned yesterday in the meeting that you know, they did their best to keep the size of the building as small as could be, but that really feels demonstrably false considering the actual requirements needed by the blood bank. And, you know, as was mentioned earlier, you know, the rest of that is meant for profit rental. So, you know, thank you for your attention. Just wanted to reiterate those points.
Alita, are you there?
Hi, I am a technological mess tonight. Let me put my headphones in and see if I can get this to work. Let me put my headphones in and see if I can get this to work. I'm just a bundle of, I don't know what. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I could hear you much better too. I'm sorry about that, honestly.
The public session
Okay.
sign up lasts until 6:45 for our full board meetings. So if you did not sign up before that time, it is at the discretion of our chair. I do see that Adam K, who has his hand raised right now, did sign up just before 7 o'clock. Alita, would you like to go to him?
Adam, are you here on the blood center?
Yes, he is.
Do you have something different to say, given that we're not voting tonight, than any of the other speakers have said?
If you can hear me, it's more just the perspective of a resident at 301 U66, which is the building directly adjacent. My apartment, an entire balcony looks out over that, and more to just reiterate the opposition.
I think we're really aware of the opposition, but still, I like to be, well, let's just say fair and inclusive. So if we give you 1 minute, could you speak fast?
I will be fast. My family and I have lived here for 10 years. We purchased the apartment that we're in after extensively researching what the FAR was, and always worried that the blood bank would need to be renovated, and never in a million years believed that a 33-story tower could be all of 20 feet from my apartment, staring at a wall of windows. Beyond looking at that and eliminating all the light for literally an entire block, but an entire building, ruining half the building, I'm most worried about the park, which is the only park in the city, in the neighborhood. And basically eliminating all the light from the park for 4 hours a day just seems inconceivable that we'd ever permit such a thing like that. I obviously support the blood bank, but I just want to reiterate the pain and suffering it would put this entire building through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for your patience with my trials and tribulations of technology. I think that's it then, right, Will, for the public session?
No, we had one more that got in right before the wire, and it's one of our board members, Valerie Mason.
Oh, Valerie, right. Valerie, please go ahead. Thank you.
Hi. I want to step away from my board position, and I want to talk a little bit about the blood center for a second, and to thank all of the community members who've come out tonight to speak about it. Frankly, I live in Bedpan Alley too. This project is very disturbing. I'm not going to wait for the next community board meeting on this subject, and neither should anybody else who is against this project. And to that end, I just want to announce that the Department of City Planning is having their scoping meeting regarding the project. It's going to be held on December 15th. And you can send in written objections. You can see what the plan looks like, and you don't have to wait to put in your objections, because the community, if we are all against this, should let the city know. And if you go to, hold on one second, www.nyc.gov/site/planning/applicants/scoping-documents.page, you will get all the information. Do not wait for the blood center to come back to the community board. Let the city of New York know that you believe in the zoning requirements we have, and that what all of your individual comments are, and start organizing in your buildings if you feel that strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Will posted the website for the information, or to send in your statements for the scoping meeting. And whether or not the blood center comes back, we will be still looking at this. I realize that we have a schedule and a time frame in meetings, but we will be looking into it, whether or not we have the cooperation and the transparency that we expect from the blood center. Thank you for bringing that up, Valerie. Okay. All right, then let's move back to the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Thank you, Valerie. Is there a second?
I saw Rita.
Okay, and I see Rebecca Gangler's hand is up. Okay, great. Okay, all in favor? Well, Any objections? Raise your hand. I forget we're not live. Any objections? Don't see any. Will, do you see any? Okay, then the agenda is adopted. Are there any objections to the minutes? If there are, please raise your hand if you need a correction. I don't see any of that. Motion to adopt the minutes. Rebecca Dangor raised her hand.
Motion
Second.
to adopt.
See,
Second.
Elizabeth Ashby
Thank you, Rebecca.
seconded.
Okay, Elizabeth seconded. Any objections? Raise your hand. Okay, so the minutes are adopted as well. Okay, then we move on to the elected official reports. Excuse me. Do we have Isabel here or potentially Borough President Gail Brewer? Any elected officials, Will?
I thought I saw Rebecca Seawright. Yes, our Assemblywoman is here, so I'm going to unmute her.
Okay, we'll begin with State Assembly Member Rebecca Seawright. Welcome, Assembly Member.
Good evening. It's great to join you all tonight for this very important board meeting. And it's an honor and a privilege to be sent back to Albany to keep up the fight for our community and for the budgetary resources that we need to maintain and enhance the quality of life on the Upper East Side, Yorkville, and Roosevelt Island. During early voting recently, we saw long lines that wrapped around the Wagner Middle School 3 times, and people were waiting to vote for up to 6 hours. 118,000 people were sent to vote at Wagner Middle School, the largest not only in New York City, but in New York State. I called on the State Board of Elections Commissioner Doug Kellner to meet me at Wagner Middle School, where we held a press conference and prepared litigation papers against the New York City Board of Elections to correct this immediately. We worked out an agreement with the president of Marymount Manhattan College, who was ready, willing, and able to offer her campus. We secured from the commissioners of the Board of Elections immediately and suspended our litigation for Marymount to be opened for the final weekend of early voting. There were no lines and voting was as easy as it should be. You may have seen the situation covered and us quoted in the Washington Post, as this was simply a matter of voter suppression of senior citizens, voter suppression of people with disabilities, and voter suppression of working men and women. It was totally unacceptable. One of the things that I'm calling on now that the election has passed is for hearings to be held around the state to put in more reforms and make more corrections of our voting process. This week is Transgender Awareness Week. I'm a proud ally standing up for the rights and visibility of the LGBTQ+ community and fighting bigotry of any kind. On November 7th, when major news outlets called the election for Joe Biden, the transgender community watched as the president-elect specifically mentioned them in his victory speech, the first US president-elect in history to do so. The mention in his acceptance speech was a symbolic shift from a presidential administration that has spent the past 4 years repeatedly erasing protections for transgender people in healthcare, federal employment, federal prisons, homeless shelters, and other housing services receiving federal funds. On the state level, we continue to advocate for the rights of trans people in the wake of discrimination in all aspects of life. We are a lead sponsor of the transgender curriculum bill, along with Senator Brad Hoylman in the state Senate. Unfortunately, we continue to see an upward trend of COVID-19 cases, and it's a stark reminder that we must all continue to be vigilant with social distancing, mask wearing, and hand washing. Governor Cuomo announced new restrictions on bars and gyms and restaurants with a new close time of 10 p.m. Just today, the New York City Department of Education announced a fully remote learning. With cases surging and holidays approaching, New Yorkers are strongly encouraged to follow the precautions outlined in the Department of Health's holiday guide, including hosting virtual gatherings, celebrating outdoors, and not traveling or quarantining and getting tested if travel is unavoidable. In honor of Veterans Day, we had the privilege of honoring women veterans who worked to help the United States efforts in World War I. At a ceremony held in Central Park, just inside at 69th Street, this was the second annual tribute that Howard Tisch and our office co-founded. In 1925, a memorial grove of 24 trees and a flagstaff were installed to pay tribute to the women who were most eager to serve their country, but the least celebrated for their contributions. We were proud to also recognize veterans during Town Hall Tuesday with the New York City Department of Veteran Services Commissioner, other experts, and veterans from right here on the Upper East Side. Last evening, we held a Town Hall Tuesday with a special focus on Roosevelt Island. As of September 25th, Roosevelt Island has lost its only banking institution, the Amalgamated Bank. With the bank closing, this leaves 2 ATMs that accept only withdrawals to fill the banking needs of the residential, business, and academic communities. This is simply unacceptable. I was on Roosevelt Island today for the dedication and ribbon cutting of the Blackwell Historical House and talked to voters and residents on the island who've been impacted and affected by the fact that there is no bank on the island. We call on the New York State Department of Financial Services Superintendent Linda Lacewell to bring banking to Roosevelt Island immediately. It's home to many elderly and disabled individuals, and now more than ever, they will need access to community banking. In addition to calling on banking regulators, I am a member of the Assembly Banking Committee and work with Chairman Abenanti to find solutions for Roosevelt Island. As we are seeing a second wave, we will also be monitoring the conditions at Kohler Hospital with the Kohler Task Force. I want to thank Alita, your chairwoman, for joining us at the meeting last night and for serving on the Kohler Task Force. New York State is providing $328 million for the Home Energy Assistance Program, HEAP, which helps income-eligible families pay heating costs. Please contact our office for more information on how to apply or if you know someone in need. 212-288-4607. Please continue to consider us as a resource. We have a no-cost housing clinic on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. The next one will take place on Tuesday, November 24th. It does book out, so reserve your spot early. Tomorrow and every Thursday between 12 and 2 p.m., our office holds a no-cost PPE giveaway at 1485 York Avenue between 78th and 79th Street. This weekend, on Sunday, November 22nd, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., we will be hosting a shred-a-thon at the 92nd Street Green Market at First Avenue. And just to wrap up, I have a very special citation to present tonight on behalf of the New York State Assembly for Alita Kemp as she concludes her service to you as Manhattan Community Board 8. This is a surprise.
Now I have 1 month left.
Well, we're going to do it tonight because I know you have your elections later this evening. She's chair of CB8's Committee on Kohler Hospital and co-chair of the CB8 Congestion Pricing Task Force. Am I being timed? We have been so proud to have her and stand with us in advocacy. She's participated in a number of press conferences that our office has conducted. And she's truly made her mark as a collaborator and community advocate. We thank her for her outstanding dedication. And let me see if this will show. We thank you for your leadership on behalf of the New York State Assembly for your dedication to the Upper East Side, Yorkville, and Roosevelt Island. Here we go. And this will be sent to you, Alita. Here we go.
I'm so touched. I don't know what to say. I hope that I fulfilled all of the hopes given to me, but I will save that for the next month. I just am glad I have a little bit more time left to continue to work for the community. But before you go, Assembly Member, I would like to say, and my computer, oh good, it hasn't frozen. Thank you. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. I don't know what to say. I do want to thank you, though, for all of your service on behalf of the Manhattan communities, including Roosevelt Island, of the women in the state of New York, of people who don't have as strong a voice as some other communities, and wish you much luck in the challenges and trials of the coming year. We know how difficult the budget cuts and some polarization and just overall issues there are in Albany. So We wish you good speed and thank you for continuing your enthusiastic and effective representation of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I know that some other elected officials are planning to attend, but in the meantime, everyone who's here on behalf of an elected official, if you could raise your hand, it makes it much easier for Will to find you and be able to call on you. So, Will, if you could call on them in order in which they've raised their hands, we're happy to hear from all of them. Thank you.
All right, we'll start with Alan from the DA's office. And again, just sort of like what we had earlier, you'll see a 2-minute timer. I will try to not cut you off, but just know that we're timing you guys. So Alan, as soon as you unmute at the bottom of your screen, I'll start the timer.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Community Board 8. My name is Alan Valerio. I'm with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, the Office of Cyrus Vance. I have a brief announcement about a recent event that we had last month at Bethel Gospel Assembly alongside with the NYPD. Within Community Board 11, our office hosted a gun buyback, which took off 48 guns off of the streets. We're continuing to engage in community events all across Manhattan, be it at Zoom, of course, virtually to maintain safety and make sure everybody stays safe during COVID. I'm the liaison to Community Board 8 and Community Board 7, and I'll leave my contact information with the board if anybody has any questions later for the District Attorney's Office. And that's all.
Thank you very much, Alan. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for the update. And I'm glad that that gun buyback program was a success. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Will?
Next, we have Mike Stinson from the Controller's Office.
This is the earliest I've went. I've tried click and raise hand as fast as possible for the past few meetings. It's the fastest I got, so thank you. Just 2 quick updates from Controller Stringer's office. Last week, the Controller announced his support for a breakthrough proposal released by the New York Taxi Workers Alliance to address the taxi medallion crisis that has led to widespread financial devastation among drivers whose medallion values have plummeted. Their plan calls on lenders to write down outstanding loans to a maximum of $125,000, allowing medallion owners to repay loans on terms they can afford with current earnings. And under this agreement, the city would act as a backstop for medallion loans held by individual owners. After reviewing the proposal, our office has concluded that it offers a comprehensive risk management approach that could reduce future liability and costs for taxpayers. And then today, I know it's been a heck of a day in news, but the Controller took court action to force the city to comply with the subpoena issued pursuant to his investigation into the city's preparedness for and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Following months of stalling and refusals to fully comply with the subpoena issued in June, the Controller today filed a petition in the New York County Supreme Court seeking a court order to compel the city to promptly and completely comply with the subpoena. The petition details how the city has consistently stymied the production of documents, repeatedly missed production deadlines, several of which the city set for itself, and recently declared it would not be able to provide all requested documents until April at the earliest, nearly a year after the Controller launched the investigation. So I'll drop some of that stuff into the chat, and thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's always a pleasure to see you, and you could bring your baby pictures. Will?
Sorry. Next up, we have Jenna Klaus from Councilmember Keith Powers' office.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jenna from Councilmember Keith Powers' office. On the legislative front, Councilmember Powers held a hearing a few weeks ago about housing and reentry, looking at the obstacles that formerly incarcerated people face in finding and keeping affordable housing. The council member also sponsored a resolution to bring ballot drop-off box to the city, which will be super valuable moving forward. And he also introduced a bill to remove the issuance and administration of press credentials from the NYPD to an independent city agency. As I've mentioned previously, our office is contracting with an organization called ACE this year for extra cleaning in the district. So far, they've already helped out in a lot of areas of the district, including a community cleanup on East 86th Street. They also helped to keep our poll sites clean during early voting. And they went to Wagner Middle School a few times to pick up trash in the area. And then I just want to remind everybody to please let me know if you see any spots that need extra cleaning or extra attention, and we're happy to send our team over there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Okay, it looks like we have Rebecca Griga.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Rebecca from Assemblymember Dan Cord's office. I hope you're all doing well. For my report tonight, I have a few notes. Some of you may have heard about the MTA's proposed budget cuts, where they say that they will have an at least 40% cut in subway services and 9,000 plus layoffs. And in response to this proposal, the assembly member, finds these proposals unsettling and urges the legislature to find new ways of raising revenue, recommending an ultra billionaires tax so that we do not see these layoffs happen and all of these cuts happen in the MTA, because it's the backbone of our city. So we're trying our absolute best to keep tabs on the situation, as well as, find ways that we could raise more revenue for the MTA to fully function and, just get back to as normal as they possibly can. And also, some of you may be aware of the increasing percentages of COVID in the community, and we are seeing a high percentage in the 10075 zip code, and we are just asking people to continue practicing social distancing, mask wearing, and all of those necessary protocols. If you need help with finding a testing location, or if you have any requests for PPE, please reach out to our office. We do have some masks and hand sanitizers. If you know of yourself or community group or whomever needs any of them, please give us a call. I'll throw my email into the chat box if you are in need of those. We can absolutely figure something out to help you there. And as always, if anyone needs help with anything like unemployment, tenant resources, please reach out to our office. Again, I will drop all of my contact info in the chat. That's all. Have a great night.
Thank you, Rebecca. And it would really be a shame if, as the infection rate is rising, the trains get more crowded through service cuts. So thank you so much for working on that, and Assemblymember Court. Mike Van Italy from State Senator Liz Kruger's office. Hi, Mike.
Good evening,
and thank
Lita.
you everyone for coming.
And everyone, first off, I'd like to relay the sentiment that Senator Kruger is honored to be serving the CB8 area for another 2 years in the state Senate. She takes the responsibility very seriously, especially in these trying times. And while she can't be here tonight, she'll address the board in December to express her gratitude personally and discuss her priorities as the legislative season ramps up again soon. Among these priorities is simply improving our democratic process. And towards that end, she'll be working towards some sweeping reforms of the Board of Election, which has unfortunately proven itself again and again to be in need of a complete overhaul to more adequately administer our elections. And as others have mentioned, as COVID infections have ticked up recently, Senator Kruger will be holding a virtual town hall on the state of the pandemic with top city Department of Health and H&H officials in charge of the city's response. And that's next Monday, 3:30 to 4:30. Info can be found on our website and our social media outlets or by contacting our office. Along with that event, we're going to be putting out a comprehensive COVID resource guide, working off the model of our senior resource guide, which is a compendium of all state, city, and nonprofit COVID-related resources that our office commonly refers people to. And those are on topics from unemployment to health insurance to small business resources to guidance on housing laws. And so that's all for me. Thank you. And I'd like to wish everyone a happy and COVID safe Thanksgiving.
Thank you, and same to you for the Thanksgiving, and to all of our elected officials. Thank you for working hard to represent the community and the city. Will, I understand that Borough President Gail Brewer and City Council Member Ben Kalos are coming, but they're not here. So we'll just stop where we are when they come.
Yes, if they're,
if we can.
Yeah, if their staff members are still here, please just chat me whenever they do show up. Are there any other elected official reps that we missed? Raise your hand quickly or send me a chat, but I don't think so.
Okay. Well, when they come, we'll welcome them. Thank you. So I just want to say that I sent around an email today that Brian Correa has started or has sent us information on the Postal Services Operation Santa. So anyone who would like to sign up, we're going to have a CB8 team. So that will be great. I know that Hunter College President Jennifer Robb will be participating and speaking at the Youth Education and Libraries Committee meeting on Monday. So sign up and go to that. She is a great speaker, and that should be very interesting. Before Election Day, we had two. I know I mentioned one, but we had a second one, a voting booth or information booth at the Isaac Center at Holmes Isaacs properties, and people were interested. We were able to give people registration information for next year, and Borough President Gail Brewer had sent someone to work with me and the Isaacs folks up there. So I think that went well. I'd like to do before the end of December an implicit bias training for everyone, so I'm working on that. I'd like to thank, with respect to Northwell and the Blood Center, both Anthony Cohn and Marco Tamayo for working hard on putting together views and gathering up information as architects that they know how to interpret and put it in a form that the public can easily understand. I ask everyone, as all of the elected official reps have done, to please follow all of the health guidelines, wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands, and stay safe as we're seeing numbers go up, and even when they weren't going up. With respect to the banks on the bank or loss of bank on Roosevelt Island, we have sent out our resolution and letter, and I know that Borough President Gail Brewer is working on that as well, along with Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright and the other elected officials. I did speak to someone at Cornell Tech. They don't have their own bank or credit union that I thought might be able to share with the Roosevelt Island residents. So they're still stuck, but we are working hard on that. I know how affected the whole community board was at the last meeting by the absence of a bank on Roosevelt Island. Thank you very much. Will?
I will pause before my report to let Philip Ellison from the Public Advocate's Office speak, and then I'll come back to my report. Philip, you're unmuted. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, great. Yeah, I luckily would not take up that amount of time. Good evening, CB8. Good to be with you. It's been a little bit, and so it's always a pleasure. So a couple of things I just want to mention around the Public Advocate and the Office of the Public Advocate. And I did send in CB8 our kind of update email in the fall about a number of things. And so most recently, as we've seen homelessness be an issue around Manhattan, et cetera, we had really thinking of the Public Advocate, Jamani Williams, humanizing this experience and the tensions of homelessness in Manhattan and in our city. We've done a 3-part series that we've received really good praise for, looking at everything from the kind of foundation of homelessness, what's the context in our city for why this is happening, looking at children and the experience of children in homelessness. And when we think about the digital divide and remote learning, we've understood that some shelters around the city, that has been a major issue. And then the last part is the business behind homelessness. And so as we reconcile these tensions, we think a holistic perspective and view on this is necessary. And I'll make sure I'll share some of those links in the chat for folks who'd love to engage or think it's necessary to engage. Also, the mayor released a pilot around, you could argue, redefining public safety, which we think in our office, the conversations around redefining public safety as a city, as a nation, are really important. And we think that's a step in the right direction, the Public Advocate has said. But based on the report, past report from the mayor's office, though there's certain good things coming out of there about alternatives for policing for mental health, there's also areas that fall short, and we've outlined those concerns and questions for this pilot around mental health supports versus traditional policing responses. And lastly, as we're entering a second wave, the public advocate has been very much on top of this. And we did a report and we released a report yesterday on the event of a second wave, looking at the recommendations at all levels and what happened on the first response, right? And so there are information I think other people would like to know. So I'll make sure I leave some of this information in the chat. If you would like to receive my update email, I'll also give you my information. Please reach out to me. And from the Public Advocate's Office, please be safe, and we wish you well. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for coming.
So I'll quickly give a report. I know we have a long agenda in front of us, or whatever. Next Thursday is Thanksgiving, as you've already heard. It also means that our board office is going to be closed that day. It also means that the next week is the end of November. So any committee chair who is having a meeting in December, please get me your agenda sometime before next week. And we do have a very busy agenda next month. Unlike some of our other months, we do have a land use committee meeting on the 9th. I just want to flag that for everybody. Board members, make sure that's on your calendar. And then I just want to quickly congratulate the electeds who were recently reelected. I want to call attention to our CB8 Speaks has relaunched. Will Sanchez and Monica Sanchez, who's one of our public members, have been restarting CB8 Speaks on their rooftop and have done some really great on the road sort of CB8 Speaks. But also right before that, our board chair interviewed Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer in what was a really delightful video. I do encourage everybody to go to our website, check that out. They work very hard on CB8 Speaks, and it's something to be very proud of. And then, staff continues to be working very hard on constituent cases. And if you guys ever see anything that you need us to follow up on, I know we've worked with a lot of the board members and a lot of the folks in the public who've reached out to us about issues in the neighborhood. So just don't hesitate to reach out about those things. And then just a really quick personal note for a lot of the board members who have been very kind and reached out to me over the last couple of months. I did lose 2 grandparents, one of them to COVID over the last 2 months. And it felt so nice to have a community that cared and reached out to me in such a sincere way. So, and a bunch of you board members were just so kind. So I wanted to say thank you in a very public way to each of you guys who were so kind to me. Thank you.
Oh, that's nice, Will, and you deserve it. We are sorry to hear of your losses and how difficult this must have been, and my bad. I also want to congratulate all of the elected officials on your reelection and your desire to serve the public. So thank you very much. Okay, with that, we're going to turn to the election. So each candidate for chair, Russell and then Shari, it's alphabetical, will have 4 minutes to speak. And then for each of them, you'll have an opportunity, the board will have an opportunity to ask questions and have the candidates answer your questions. After the chairs, we'll hear from Tricia and then, and we'll vote on each office after the candidate or candidates have an opportunity to speak and have their questions. Gail Barron will be chairing this portion of the meeting because she was the chair of the nominating committee. I hope everything goes smoothly. I have no doubt. I know that we have a very active and interested and engaged board with a lot of questions. So this is your opportunity to not only ask your questions, but ask questions that you think other board members might be interested in hearing. So thank you very much. And we'll be doing a roll call for each vote by name instead of we'll assume that it's a yes unless it's a raised hand. We'll be doing it by name individually. And then after that, we just have 2 other agenda items. So having said that, Gail?
Thanks,
Will,
Alita.
have you unmuted Gail? I guess you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, Alita and I have had numerous requests, especially from new board members, to be able to answer ask and then see answers to questions from our candidates. And frankly, I think this is in large part due to Zoom, because people haven't been able to really get to talk to one another in person, to know each other, and sometimes, frankly, even to recognize other board members. So I think this is an opportunity to get to know your future leadership. Each, as Alita said, each chair candidate will get to speak for up to 4 minutes. Then there will be the opportunity to ask questions. I'm really asking all of you to be as concise as possible, and wherever possible, let's have a question and an answer and try to have only a total of 2 minutes with both the question and the response. So, and if it takes a little longer than that because of a complexity, we understand, but let's try to not be long-winded and yet still be able to get answers. Then each of the other candidates for first vice chair, second vice chair, and the secretaries will get to speak for a minute. And what they will be doing is basically introducing themselves. So those of you that don't know them will have just a short bio from them, but you'll be able to ask them questions as well. And one further thing before we begin, a lot of questions have come to Alita and myself. And I just want you to know that if you are committed to a candidate, you can still change your mind to vote on another candidate based on what you hear tonight. So I just want people to understand that that's also a strong possibility if indeed that's a direction that somebody chooses to go. With that said, we're going to begin with Russell Squire, who is the first of 2 candidates for board chair. Russell?
Good evening. As a lifelong resident of this community district, I am deeply committed to this community. I love the things that give it its character and make it what it is, the beautiful historic buildings, the restaurants and other small businesses, and most of all, the residents of this district. I volunteer through the synagogue that I belong to here, and I've been active in the community in other ways as well. I was here through the COVID lockdown. I experienced what the community experienced. During that time, I helped deliver meals to those who needed them, and I helped make calls through Keith Power's office to seniors to make sure they were doing okay. And on the board, I'm co-chair of Environment and Sanitation and also serve on Street Life. I see service on the community board as a way to give back to this community that I care so much about. And I have found my service on the board to be very rewarding. I want to be the board chair because I see that as a way to serve the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island even more. And I have the skills and experience from my work both on and off the board to be effective in that role. On my vision for the chair role, in running the meetings, the chair has to create an atmosphere where people feel comfortable contributing, where we can have a robust debate, but always in an atmosphere of civility. The chair should not use their power to try to steer things in a particular direction, but rather should ensure a fair process, like a moderator, and respect the other board members and allow them to discuss and persuade one another. And the chair has to keep the meetings on track and keep the agenda moving. With respect to committees, I think the chair should let them do their thing and generate the resolutions that they generate organically. The chair can suggest subject matters for the committees, but should not tell the committees what resolutions to pass or try to steer things to one committee over another. Of course, if there's a problem with a committee, the chair should step in to address that. And if committees have not met in a long time, the chair should address that as well. Finally, the chair should be zealous advocate for the board and do everything they can to ensure that when we take a position, it is being listened to and taken into account. That means that the chair has to advance the position that the board has taken, regardless of how the chair voted during the meeting. Often, we are most successful at getting agencies to listen to us when we work through our elected officials, whom I know and can work well with. And the chair also has to liaise with the agencies, the public, and the media, and all of these aspects of the chair role are ones that I would be effective at. Some of the things that I would want to focus on next year, COVID-19 is a big one. I was part of the group that organized our programming about contact tracing, and I helped lead some of those meetings. I'm very proud of all the work that the board has done in response to COVID-19, not just on contact tracing, but also with regard to small businesses, with regard to schools and in other areas. I think we're uniquely positioned to have an impact here because we can bring different segments of the community together and be a liaison between the community and the government. I also want us to do more outreach to let the community know about the positive role that we play. In particular, I want us to present to schools to let students know about us, and also to engage and reach out with the residents of Holmes and Isaacs to get them more engaged in the work of the board. I think it's critical next year to get the Social Justice Committee that we talked about off the ground. That's a priority of mine. I also think we're going to have a lot of work to do to ensure that the voice of the community is heard with respect to the Blood Center. Internally, the top priority is making the meeting shorter. It's a big issue for everybody. I have a lot of views on this, but the shorter version is we have got to, I think there are aspects of the meetings that we can cut down or even cut out. And I think we need to focus on getting comments to be concise, to not be repetitive. And I think it's possible to do that while still retaining an atmosphere that's receptive to everybody's input. I've demonstrated an ability to run meetings effectively and efficiently and to come up with solutions that allow us to move the agenda. I want us to do more also to integrate new members. We are fortunate to have a mix of members with decades of experience as well as newer members with new perspectives. And I think we need to make sure that new members feel comfortable sharing those perspectives and make it clear every board member has an equal voice and an equal vote. Before closing, I want to let everyone know I am not running for re-election to be the president of the Lexington Democratic Club for next year, so I won't be the president after January. I know this has been a concern for a number of you, so I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that. In closing, whether it is in leading and participating in meetings or working with other board members outside of meetings, I have shown the ability to work collaboratively, build consensus, and listen to effectively address and resolve issues, and to run things efficiently. I promise to be a chair for the whole board. Next year will present great challenges, but also great opportunities. And I am the right person to lead Community Board 8 into the future, and I ask for your vote for chair.
Thank you, Russell. Are there any questions? Let's see.
You have one from Anthony.
Okay, Anthony.
Hi, Russell. I have a kind of specific question that in a way relates to a lot of what we've been talking about the last few days. I'd really like to know your position on the 210-foot height limit for the Eastern Avenues, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st, and also your position on the New York Blood Center and Northwell Lenox Hill Hospital projects, which will both consume much of this board's attention over the next year.
Sure. So my position on the 210 height limit is that I'm in favor of it. The board has spoken on that issue also. That's the position of the board. So the other thing just to be aware of is that irrespective of my personal views, that's the position that the chair has to advance on that issue, but I'm also in favor of it. With regard to Northwell, I think I'm glad that the residential tower isn't part of the project anymore. I think the current iteration of the proposal is still too bulky. I think it is not contextual. And so I'm glad that we're continuing to address that and try and get that hopefully either changed or otherwise certainly not go forward the way it's been presented. And with the Blood Center, as I said in the meeting last night, I think there are a lot of valid concerns that the community has raised. And if you were to ask me,
I am asking you.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm asking you. Yeah. I want to know what you think.
Right. I understand. I'm answering the question.
I know.
So if the question is, given what we have now, the presentation that was presented us yesterday, yay or nay, up and down, we have to vote now, my answer would be no. And that's what I said in the meeting yesterday. And that's what I think. I'm hopeful that based on the concerns that were expressed yesterday, that that the developer will come back to us and hopefully work with the community to try and address those concerns. I think the concerns that were expressed with regard to shade are very significant and are very valid. I think height concerns are valid. So all of that is to say, I am very hopeful that they'll be willing to make changes. And if they don't, then that will be, then we'll probably have to oppose it based on how it's going. Let me just add one more point here actually on this. So I'm happy to answer questions about, my substantive views on things. And I think that I like talking about that stuff. But I do want to just emphasize the point that the chair is elected to lead the committee, the community board rather than represent us. And as I said in my speech, I think ultimately the chair's views on a particular substantive issue, I think, are sort of ancillary, because it really shouldn't matter. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the chair gets a vote just like everybody else in the meeting, but the community board as a board is going to make its decision as a board on the whole. And whatever that decision is, that's the decision that the board chair has to advance. And the board chair has a responsibility to advance that, to push that, again, to advocate zealously and make sure that we're being listened to and respected in what we've done. And I just think it's important to draw a distinction between a role like the community board chair and a role like, for example, state senator. You know, when community members are electing a state senator, I, as an individual voter, I don't get a vote in the state senate. I'm electing somebody to represent me when they go to that body and cast a vote. And that's why it's very important that, you know, I want to know what their particular positions are. For the community board chair, that's not really, it's not quite the same. I mean, yes, there's the borough board. The community board chair goes to the borough board and represents the board there. But for the most part, the community board chair is not representing the board is, or in terms of voting, but is leading the board. And so it's the board itself, it's the board as a whole, it's all of you that are going to decide what the positions are that we take as a board. It's not me as the chair, and it shouldn't be me as the chair who does that. So again, happy to answer these questions. I think, you know, I like talking about this stuff, but I do want to emphasize that ultimately you need a chair who's going to be committed to going with what the board decides, and I am.
Okay, Barbara Rutter.
I was actually going to ask Russell, does he think it's an appropriate question? And as a chair, is that a necessary question? I will say that I am looking forward to a chair that is neutral and will support chair people, particularly active ones. Of course, my love is the health seniors, and I love the parks, and I hope it is. And Russell, I assume from your previous answer, you would agree with me. I guess that is my question, that do you agree that your job would be to work with the chairs of the different committees and not make it just a land use community board?
Yes, I agree with you. And so I think, and I think we're very lucky. We have a lot of great committees and great chairs who really know their stuff when it comes to their particular subject areas. And so I think as the chair should let the committees, again, do their work, as I said, and respect them to do the work that they're going to do and what they want to do. I think it's perfectly appropriate for the chair to suggest areas that a committee might want to look at, but by and large, let the committees do what they're going to do, and you know, step in if there's a problem, step in if something needs to be fixed. But you know, just let the committees do their work as they're capable of.
Thank you.
Okay, Marco.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
No, thank you. Russell, I think I had to congratulate that you're running for the as a chair for the chair position of the community board. But I'm a little bit confused because
we can't hear you.
Well, as well as I just heard today that you describe more or less what is your role, and one of the roles you said you were as a moderator. I want to be very clear. Have your own way to run, or are you planning to use the Robert rules?
Sorry, am I planning to use Robert's rules? Is that the question?
Yes, basically I hear, but I don't know, it's too long to describe the Robert rules, and probably you describe part, or is your style that you're gonna impose in the community board, or you really want to use the Robert rules?
I will use Robert's rules. I don't think Robert's rules are inconsistent with what I described, but yeah, the community board uses Robert's rules. I'm very familiar with Robert's rules, and we would continue to use Robert's rules if I'm elected.
So it will be fair always to call you according with the Robert rules, everything, if you are selected as a chair of the committee.
Yeah, just as it is
Thank
now.
you.
Sure.
Okay, Craig.
Craig, go ahead and unmute.
Good evening, everyone. I only think it would be fair to ask Shari to respond to the same line of questions that were asked of Russell regarding the Northwell and the Blood Center, and also whether she agrees with Russell in terms of the role of the chair and his response. I think this is an important question and consideration, and it should be fleshed out so we have the same perspective from both. I think with any question that's asked, it should be a question that we should have parity on, so we both know, so we all know what both are thinking.
That's fine. We can do that. I've got your point, Greg. Anything else?
No, I'd just love to hear Shari's response.
Okay, Kaz.
Yeah, I think what we should have done is heard from both sides first, and then some people that ask the question, it should be asked to both of them, rather than have one person go, ask the question, another person go and ask the question. I'm just wondering if these questions are going to be asked by, for both applicants. My question to Russell is, I've heard from different people being called and classifying some members in one camp or another camp. And my name has been mentioned by some people. I'm not going to mention names, but, I take offense to it. Have you yourself or anybody you know called anybody, spoken to them, and mentioned other people's name that that what their views are and it's against what your views are? And I will ask the same question to Shari so she can write it down now.
Well, I have heard the same accusations being leveled during the campaign, and I think there were some accusations leveled at me in that regard. And I also was disappointed to hear that, and frankly, kind of surprised that that was part of this process. But so first of all, I guess to the extent that that's a concern, I'm not a part of any kind of faction or group. I never have been on the board. That's not really how I approach what I do on the board. I look at every resolution and every application as it comes. I look at it independently. I make up my own mind. I think folks who have seen me on the board over the years and heard me speak on issues, I would hope it's pretty clear that when I speak, those are my views, and my views are my own, my words are my own. I would think that would come through. So so that's the answer on the question of factions. I'm not part of anything like that. In terms of the question of talking about other people, so again, I was sort of surprised to hear when I was calling people that people were saying things about me and leveling accusations about me in the course of this process that I just didn't expect that to be part of this. So sometimes when people have raised concerns with me, there are times where I've responded just to point out that the same concerns are also applicable to my opponent. So nothing really negative, just factual information. So for example, I know people that asked me if I would have time, or I guess, as I understand it, some people raised the issue, people who were opposed to my candidacy, raised the issue of whether I would have adequate time to devote to the role of board chair. And in responding to that, I have pointed out to various things that Shari's involved in. She has a lot of demands on her time as well, various other professional obligations and other places and so on. And so the only point there is just to say, it's not just a concern for me. And I'll just also add that to the extent that is a concern, I've heard it quite a bit. There's an old saying that if you want something done, give it to a busy person. I think there's a lot of truth to that. So I've shown in my time on the board, I'm able to devote the time it takes to do this. I've made it a priority. I've made myself very well organized and, been able to make it to the meetings. My attendance has been very good. I'm very active. I'm very engaged. I put the time in. This is something that's very, very important to me. I'm, again, a lifelong member of this community. I wouldn't put myself forward for this if it weren't, if I weren't confident that I can do it well, which means devoting the time to it that it's going to require. So I'm very confident I can do that. Last thing I would say on that is we've had other lawyers in the past who have been board chair. It's been pretty common. And of course, most of our board chairs have jobs, so it's not a new thing. So hopefully that allays any concerns in that regard.
Okay. Thanks, Russell. Michelle?
Yeah, I just wanted to express a different point of view than what Craig has expressed. I think each candidate addresses what he or she would like to address, and each of them is going to welcome questions from all of us. I don't think that they, by an exterior acclamation, should be required to answer each of the questions that might have been addressed to the other. They are listening to this, and if each of them feels that they do want to address what has been expressed, it's within their right to do so. I don't think that there should be any mandatory or mandates on them that they have to address this or have to address that. These are two competent adults. They are listening to the discussion, and they should address it how they like. And I wouldn't want either one of them to be held to the requirement of what another one had suggested. So I just wanted to put that out there that, I disagree with a formal making of them each to answer a question that went to the other. I think we should leave that up to these very competent candidates.
Thanks, Michelle. Elaine Walsh?
One, I will agree with Michelle. This is not a forum for a debate like we've seen in the presidential. The question I had, Russell, was understanding your position in the law firm. I have heard, not from you, from others, that you have said that most of the work of the community board chair is after 5 o'clock. In my experience, that's not always true, and wanted to know what your time availability is to attend borough board meetings, etc., during the day.
Sure. So I know that the additional time commitments are not only after 5 o'clock, very cognizant of that. I will be able to attend the borough board meetings. That's a critical part of what the community board chair does. So I will be doing that. I will be able to do that. Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Wilma?
Wilma, it's *6 to unmute. There you go.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Yes, you are.
Hi, yes, that's hi. I was what Carl was saying about us hearing what each candidate had to say, and then ask the questions. I feel that would be a better way, because it's getting to be a lot of information and a lot being said. Whether when it went into asking about the building and other things, that I don't think it has anything to do with this kind of introduction to meeting the people that are going to be chair. I would be interested to hear what Sherry has to say, and then ask questions according, but not to just deal with subject with Russell for 2 hours, and then Sherry goes, and then people ask maybe not the same questions, but it's just a little bit much. And I think Carl's at a point when he said that maybe we should do one candidate at a time. Although I know this it already started, and you may not want to just change anything, but I thought he had a good suggestion.
Thank you, Wilma. Ed?
Hi, thanks. I'll be very quick. This is more for Russell and Sherry. I I'm sorry to say, I have to have a hard stop for me. I have to get my son at hockey practice. I spoke to both of you. This pains me. I'm going to try to sign in on my phone if we take this vote. If you don't hear me on the phone, my apologies to both of you for not being able to vote. But I thought, not to take up everybody's time on a personal matter, but I felt I owed it to both of them. I spoke to both of you. I can only see Russell now, but Sherry, it's also to you. Sorry to the rest of the board. I'm going to try to participate. I'm going to scoot, not waste any more time, but I wanted to let all of you know why, if you call my name, you don't hear me. I will be back. It's just picking them up, so I'll catch you on the back end of the meeting. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ed.
You all.
Sure.
Sandrea?
Okay, hello. Greetings, Mr. Russell. As a resident of public housing, how would you, as a chair of CB8, see to it that the residents are made aware that the community board serves their community too? Majority of the time, we have felt left out. For example, the Learning Bridges site being placed right on our grounds, and as a leader in my community and beyond, we were not aware. I, for one, have adult children, but I would have liked to inform residents in the beginning stage rather than when the selection process was already taking place. I found out myself on October 1st at one of our community board meetings. And for those who is not aware, Learning Bridges is a new program that provides free childcare options for children from 3K to the 8th grade on days when they are scheduled for remote learning. So that's my question to you.
Sure. So I think, it involves doing the work. So I think the first step is going and trying to speak to members of Holmes and Isaacs at meetings or in other contexts if we can organize them. Basically, and I would want to do this as the chair, go there and make sure folks are aware of the community board, tell them, what it is that we do, what our role is in the community, and really work to listen to their concerns. And I think the way to really bridge the divide is getting the word out about the community board, letting folks know what it is that we do, and hopefully getting more people from Holmes and Isaacs to come to our meetings and to be part of the meetings, both the committee meetings and the full board meetings. I think that's, once that happens, I think it sort of gets its own momentum. And when people from those communities are more involved in the community board, then I think we're hearing more about them and their concerns are coming more to the fore. And there's just much more back and forth and much more ability to address those concerns. And the fact is that Holmes and Isaacs obviously are part of this community district, part of this community. I think it's not always clear when you look at our community board meetings and the issues that we talk about and who's there, that that's the case. And I would like that to change. So I think the answer is it's really about doing the work, doing the outreach, talking to folks, listening to folks, and just really encouraging them to be more involved.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Alita, did you have a question?
I do, thank you. And thank you very much, Russell, for being so upfront about everything. I just would like to say that I did not receive these calls, but I've heard that there was negativity on both sides, and I did speak to both candidates about it. I know that any negative comments did not come from either candidate directly. I would like to ask you, Russell, if you don't mind, if you were interested in running for office, is that something that you would share as part of your campaign right now?
Well, so I think everybody knows, I'm not running for public office in 2021. Beyond that, I don't really know. I don't know what the future will hold, I guess, but I don't have any sort of plans on that or anything.
Okay, and there's a last question from Peter Patch. Peter?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, frankly, I was resisting asking this, but I have heard, that Dan Quart's seat might be coming up. Would you, if you had an interest in that seat, i.e. that's what, 80, the second year out, would you share that at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's, talking about stuff in the future, so I just don't know.
Okay, now we're going to go to Sherry. Oh, 1 second. Alita, did you have a further comment?
I do. I'm just a little confused. I'm sorry, Russell, about your answer because, and please forgive me, I'm not really clear on state politics and timelines or anything. I understand Peter asked you about Dan Court's seat, but the district attorney election is this year, right, along with the other city elections. And so he would have to, if he won the primary and run, isn't that something that you would have to be considering because his seat would be vacant in a year from now? And I honestly don't know. I follow some, but I don't know how the whole process works.
Well, so I guess in terms of the timing, there wouldn't be a vacancy until next year when the new the district attorney, whoever gets, all the people who get elected this year, take office January 1st of 2022. So there wouldn't be a vacancy until that point, and there's no vacancy now. So I guess I don't know the answer. I mean, I don't know. It's in the future.
Okay.
Sarah Chu.
Hi, I just want to, I hope we can be a little more careful about our questions moving forward. We're asking candidates about their plans long beyond the term that they're running for. And I don't think that we should be stifling anyone's ambitions to serve our community. So, and there may not be parallel questions for the other candidates. So I appreciate that, Russell, you've taken the time to answer these questions. I personally feel like it's venturing into an inappropriate area. And so I'm expressing this. Others may disagree with me, but I hope that we can end this line of questioning, please.
Okay, we have 2 other questions, and then we're going to go to Sherry. Rebecca Dangor.
Hi, this isn't a question. I just want to remind everyone, especially newer board members, that these terms are for 1 year. So we can always re-elect new people no matter what the circumstances are. I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page. You can serve 3 consecutive years, but we're only electing someone today for 1 year. Thank you.
Okay, Taina.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to second what Sarah Chu said. I just think I think, Gail, we sort of started this sort of line of questioning the way we did, and we did, sort of one after the other. But I think unless we're going to be asking both candidates about their sort of 3 to 5 year plans, I think this line of questioning is incredibly inappropriate, and I think, frankly, completely irrelevant to the candidacy of a chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Taina. Alita. We can't hear you.
Carolina Tejo.
I'm muted. I just wanted to say in response to Sarah and I think it was Taina, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, that I asked the question because there are differences of opinion in how political the board should be. So I just wanted to ask, and I'm perfectly happy to ask Shari the same question. I don't feel that it was inappropriate. We could take that up another time, but I know that there are people who are concerned about that. And so I thought I would ask, not about Russell in particular, but just about the politics and the board and the intersection. So I am sorry if I offended anyone by taking this down a different track, but it seemed to be appropriate. So having said that, I'm muting.
So I just want to address that concern, I guess. So I mean, I mentioned that I'm not going to be the president of the Lexington Democratic Club next year, as I know that had been a concern, so I wanted to make sure folks know that. The other thing is, I have always treated my board service to be 100% nonpartisan. It's always how I've conducted myself with respect to the board. It's what we should be doing. It's what I've done consistently in my time on the board. That would certainly continue for me as chair, and I really stand on my record in that regard. I've been completely nonpartisan in everything I've ever done related to the board.
Oh, thank you, Russell. All right, time is starting to creep by, so we're going to give Sherry an opportunity to speak now.
Okay, so you'd like me to clear all the hands
Yeah,
right now and
please.
line up Sherry?
Mhm.
Okay. Clearing hands. Sherry, give me 1 second to unmute you. Your name is at the bottom of the list. Sherry, just unmute. I sent you a...
It didn't.
Nope, you're there. You're good. We hear you.
I'm good. Hi. All right. Well, before I begin my formal remarks, I want to make it clear that I am not running for elected office. When I describe my background, you'll see I've already been there and done that. So I'm not running for office for anybody who might have been concerned. And secondly, you'll see when I go through my remarks that I'm really very in tune to the board because I've answered a lot of your questions in my prepared remarks. So hopefully we won't have to go through them again. So good evening, members of Community Board 8. First, let me say at the onset how honored I am to be working with all of you and your efforts on behalf of the community and the work we've done together for the community. And that's why I'm running for chair. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in New York City and then moved to New Jersey to raise my children. I then moved back to the Upper East Side as a full-time resident 8 years ago. So I've been here for 8 years. I first became aware of the community board when I was at a street fair. I saw the CB8 table and went and talked to the CB8 members. And when I learned the purpose of the community board, I knew that was an organization I wanted to join. I was first appointed a public member of the Zoning and Development Committee so I could contribute my knowledge of zoning as I am a land use attorney. And I have since been appointed twice as a regular member of the board. So in addition to continuing to serve on zoning and development, I served on the Charter Change Task Force, and I'm currently co-chair of the Voting Reform Task Force. I was also the former elected mayor of Livingston, New Jersey, a community of 28,000 people, from which I have learned many transferable managerial and supervising skills. And I now serve as the township attorney in Livingston. And to answer Russell's concerns about my commitment, I am retiring in December as township attorney, which will give me the flexibility and time to attend meetings during the day, such as borough board, city planning meeting with applicants. Because I know that being chair of Community Board 8 requires a much greater time commitment than just running a board meeting, which I am able and prepared to give. So since I'm asking for your vote, you should know the kind of chair I'm going to be. I will work hard to make sure everyone is heard and recognized and their views represented. I know how to run an effective meeting, and the following are my plans to streamline and shorten our board meetings, a major concern raised by many of you when we spoke. I will use my knowledge of Robert's Rules of Order to run a meeting efficiently, effectively, and productively. I will be allocating a segment time for each item on our agenda. And unless it's a very time-sensitive matter, I will require that each topic be brought to the appropriate committee before it's brought to the board. I do not believe an initial discussion on a new matter should be conducted at the end of a long board meeting. And when a committee passes a resolution or sends a letter on a substantive topic, that should only be the first step. I will ask each committee to appoint a person to follow through by contacting the elected official or the agency which received the correspondence to make sure they act upon it appropriately. And I have reached out to each community board member and have spoken to most of you, including committee chairs and co-chairs, and I assure them that I will support their priorities and initiatives. And you have shared with me a great many ideas that I would join in promoting, including increasing CB8 social media presence on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Another great idea was joining with neighborhood groups to promote composting and advocating for more green space. Another was making Kohler Hospital a technical campus for people with disabilities in collaboration with Cornell Tech. Be assured, I listen, I absorb, and I respond. I'm a person of action. I will also use my skills learned from supervising staff to manage the community board office. I will make sure the lines of communications are open, working with Will and the staff, not to micromanage, but to motivate our employees so that they know their contributions are valued and appreciated, and to ensure that their workload is appropriately distributed to serve the needs of the board, especially the committee chairs. So what are my priorities for community boarding? My overriding priority is preserving and, better yet, increasing the quality of life on the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island. This would encompass addressing development, outreach, diversity, affordable housing, senior services, childcare, education, parks, amongst other essential amenities for life in the city. As my time on this,
you're good. You're good.
Let me just go a little bit more. Then I'm saying that I'm going to ask that I be asked a question about my priorities, so I could speak about that. I'm moving. A community board without public participation is not a community board. We need to know what our community wants. Related to this is the need for more diversity on the community board to appropriately address the community at large. Such diversity will make the community board stronger. I will strive to make—
excuse me, you have to begin to wrap up because Russell confined his remarks to 4 minutes, so you need to do the same.
Okay,
please.
when I read it at home, it seemed to be 4. Okay, so I will strive to make CB8 and its public participants more diverse. I have a list of items. Please, somebody ask me about that. These are some of my thoughts and your ideas on how to make Community Board 8 a more efficient, dynamic, inclusive, supportive force for the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island. And I'm asking for your vote to give me the opportunity to implement them. And as I said, I hope you will ask some of the questions on my priorities and how I want to increase public participation in the question section so I can address those. Thank you.
Okay, let's start with the first question from Barbara Rutter. Barbara?
I did it too fast.
Sorry.
I have a several part, and I don't mean to be contentious, but to answer in terms of Russell, are you still going to be a real estate agent? And I know that because from the first day you're on the board, I've gotten your monthly newsletters, which I think are wonderful and praised you for them. But you are a tri-state real estate agent, and you have told me you spend a lot of time with your spouse in Boston. So will you have time if you're a tri-state? And that's question number 1, that in response to the same question that was asked of Russell.
Oh, okay. You want me to answer that? Yeah. Well, luckily, yes, I do have my real estate license in New York, and it gives me the opportunity to tell people how wonderful the Upper East Side is. As we know, the real estate market.
You have it in 3 states. You're a 3-state.
I know, and I'm licensed as an attorney in 3 states too. That doesn't mean, yes, but I do most of my, I do some real estate in New Jersey. I do not do anything in Massachusetts, but this was meant to be a retirement job But if I get lucky enough to be elected chair, that will be in the back burner. I'm actually, as I said, retiring and cutting back on my law practice. So real estate is certainly not a major time commitment for me.
Okay, and a second question, again, because of what was asked, Russell, was about your politics. I just have to say that it amazes me that people will criticize any of us for wanting political ambition or involvement. We are here because that's in our genes, that we want to be involved. A lot of my friends play bridge, or they're docents in museums. You know, I have complimented you for being mayor and so on. You are an executive at the New Jersey Some Women's Caucus. You invited me to something for an LGBT national, where you're some executive or vice president there. And you're very close to Rebecca Seawright. I like Rebecca Seawright and have worked with her. I felt there was some conflict, as you know, and as we've discussed, with some issue with the community board. So is it fair? And I don't want to criticize you for it. I think this is what we are. We are beings that are interested in community work, and politics comes out of it. But I just want to point out that it's unfair to criticize one, and I'm not criticizing you for it, and I don't know if you have a response to that.
Hey, as Michelle Obama says, when people go low, we go high. I'm not going to respond.
Okay, well, I have one that may be low too, but it's a very sensitive subject for me. It came up again with dirty talk. The first time I talked to you, maybe in July, as to say that you're definitely one, you talked about the groups and who is a somebody person, and it went on and on. It's something I find so distasteful and demeaning that anybody would think that a person could call me up. You have just the other day said that new people will vote for Russell because this person called them and were nice. That you did say that. And I just hope, I would like your promise that if you become chair, that you will not put us in groups. I just found it the most demeaning, and I unfortunately lost my temper with one of your surrogates that went through the list of another 10 people that were part of this clique. I will say that I do not belong to a clique, and nobody I know belongs to a clique. You know, there is a clique, but not ones that we belong to. And I hope that if you become chair, you would treat us as individuals and not clique people, and just because of a vote where we belong. Do you have an answer to that?
No.
Okay. So I assume the answer is okay. Thank you.
I mean, obviously, I mean, we've had this personal conversation. You were one of the people who encouraged me to run for office.
Because I was impressed with your political career.
Okay. And then when I said this was a good idea and I would run, and then you decided not to support me. So, right?
You know, I think
okay. So I don't, Barbara, we've had this conversation in person. I don't think it's appropriate to do this in front of
Russell either, but it did come up for Russell. So I thought it
was.
Well,
I didn't bring it up.
Once again, we're trying to get information as far as how these people will behave in running the board. So let's try, if there are any other questions, I will certainly call on people, but let's try to ask suppletive questions rather than dealing with character accusations on either side. Russell, you had a question? Your hand is up.
I just wanted to point out, I've spoken to most of you in most cases multiple times. I've talked in much more depth about various things that I want to do and my priorities than I was able to do during my speech. I kept myself to 4 minutes in part by speaking quickly. The speaking quickly, I want to reassure you, is not part of my plan to make the meeting shorter. I have other things that I spoke in some depth with many of you about. So I just wanted to point that out. That
okay, Russell, thank you. Now it's time to let people question Sherry. All right, Cos.
Yeah, I will ask the same question to Sherry. Have you or any of your subordinates been calling people and basically claiming they're in one group or another group, and which group am I in? That's question number one.
I have not.
And your subordinates?
I don't, I assume when people are calling, they're talking about my attributes, my positive attributes. Why would we need to go negative when I have so much to offer the board?
Okay, well, that's a matter of opinion.
All
We'll-
right,
Oh, that was.
we said it, we're going to move on. Carolina?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Kaz.
Hi there.
Carolina?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so Sherry had a lot of sort of buzzwords with inclusion and diversity. And I'd like to address the fact that, and this is a conversation I've had with, you know, some of the younger members or the less seasoned members of the board, where I personally, who've been on the board now for 4 years, have absolutely 100% felt very siloed. And if there is anyone that would like to say that there are not cliques amongst the members who've been part of the board for longer, then I would have to wholeheartedly disagree. And the fact that Sherry was asked some of the same questions along the same lines that Russell was, the fact that you did not want to respond to the questions and were very combative is actually showing the character of a chair more so than a prepared speech. And so my question to you is, and like I said, this is not supposed to be kind of a character assassination, which I would disagree on either side. But I feel like a lot of these questions that are being asked of either Sherry and or Russell are veiled attempts to get other information that actually has very little to do with the job that we're really kind of looking for. So there's no particular question except that I do feel like there is a lot of preparation where even in the speech was like, and asked me about this particular thing, where I feel that this was prepared amongst board members. It's the same board members over and over. And to Taina's point, as a new member, I feel like there isn't inclusion and there isn't diversity. And I'm not talking about race or color. I'm talking about just the ranks amongst the board, where I know there's been folks who've been on the board for 30 years. And to be quite frank, when you're putting people in place and saying, oh, maybe they have political aspirations, that's fine. We currently have people who are running for secretary and vice chair and so on, who are running for city council and all sorts of other positions within the government. And we're not scaring them. So I think that's an unfair assessment that we're making across the board. And it's quite honestly making, I think, a lot of people uncomfortable. At least it's making me uncomfortable because we're not sticking to the actual role, which is chair. And this conversation has actually, I think more than so, showed me exactly where the divide is, where it's sort of the us versus them. And I think it's incredibly disappointing because we talk about diversity and inclusion of the community, but within our own ranks, we fall incredibly short.
Carolina, I'd like to address that. I wish you would, I've reached out to you several times and I'm sorry we didn't have the opportunity to speak, but I'm going to take your question on diversity and address how I see that we needs to address more diversity, not only in Community Board 8, but also in the public participants. I think one thing that we really need to do is increase our posting of our meetings through our neighborhoods, especially important for people who are not computer savvy. And we need to encourage residents to join our mailing lists and increase our social media outreach. We need to reach out to neighborhood and tenants associations to encourage their members to become involved at Community Board 8. We need to encourage people to become public members. As a chair, would be making appointments as to asking people to becoming public members. And I would do that with consideration of more diversity on the community board. I believe once people become public members, they get a comfort level. So they would apply to be regular members. I mean, many of us, that wasn't an issue for many of us, but many people are intimidated. And another thing I think we should be doing is reaching out to the members of the community as resource. When chairs and committee members have a level of knowledge on many topics, but when something needs more a greater knowledge or more sophistication, then we should reach out to the community as a resource. We have them there. It's a way to reach out, and it's a way for us to benefit and get the knowledge that they have. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Sherry. Michelle?
Yeah, thank you. A couple of things. First, I have great admiration for Sherry and all she's achieved in her career. As for people's points of view, you know, some of us have lived a very long time. We don't come to the board as a blank slate. We have things that we've done in the past. We have careers, we have family, we have all kinds of different experiences. We have to trust that when candidates put themselves forward, that they have the intent to have the time to do the job. Sherry is quite an impressive woman. If you listen to her speak, if you look at her resume, she certainly has the qualifications to do this job. As for the cliques, this sounds like, you know, people complaining. It's almost like I've been left out. I'm left out. Well, some of it is, you know, each individual person has to take the responsibility to try as much as they want. Some people don't really want to be all that social or all that communicative. I mean, some people don't. And that to me is perfectly acceptable. Many of us function as loners in our private life and in our community board life. So I see no particular problem with that. But for anybody who of that, if that's a concern, I really would ask everybody at the board tonight to please reach out to whomever you'd like to reach out to if you feel that you want to be included in more things. I think it is true that people who, approach other people and do try to persuade them of their opinion. I think that's part of the process. It's not something that I particularly have participated in, but that's part of it when you're running for office. So I just want to put it out. I want to say that rather than complaining about the process or offering our own personal views because we somehow, each of us might be feeling wronged, I would like to hear from the candidates. And to that end, I would like to ask Sherry to tell us anything else about herself that she feels is important to this end that she didn't have an opportunity to convey.
Well, I'm very interested in preserving our neighborhoods. I'm a member of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. I'm a member of New York Landmark Conservancy, and that's very important to me. I think the point my life experience has made me well qualified to be chair of this community. Having served as a mayor of a large community, overseeing multi-million-dollar budget, running meetings, I mean, this is the kind of skills that you need. We've had problems with our office. I've had experience in overseeing staff. And I just think it's just something I feel so strongly about. As I said, as soon as I saw the CBA table, I knew that it was something I wanted to get involved in. And frankly, to address this, I've been saying to people, this process has become more political than the presidential, and it's really sad. I mean, I'm so glad that so many people feel so strongly about it, but this has not been the way I had envisioned, you know, a campaign for chair of Community Board 8.
Thank you, Sherry. I'd like to ask that the rest of the questions, and I'll call on everyone, but please let's try to separate criticism from substantive questions where we can really find out more about the candidates' priorities. With that said, Elaine?
Sorry, it took me a second. Following up on that, that is what I was going to ask Sherry. She mentioned some priorities, but what other priorities does she have as in her position as chair? So
thank you, and thank you, and that'll address some of the questions that was asked of Russell. Again, my main priority would be to maintain and to improve the quality of life for the residents of the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island. The city charter gives the community board a special role in the area of land use. And that would make that my top priority, is to address development in the Upper East Side. I support development, but it must be appropriate to our neighborhoods and to meet the needs of our community. Community board members have a responsibility to ask developers tough questions that, you know, what we would have done, you know, with the blood bank, because they're asking for our support and we need to ask them those questions. We'll be continuing to address the expansion of the Lenox Hill Hospital in the blood bank. I am full support of the 210 foot limit on York First and Third Avenues. I see no basis for the city to allow unlimited heights to the detriments of our neighborhoods. I do a lot of walking around the Upper East Side and you can't find any sunlight, and it shouldn't be that way. So I definitely support that. And then we have three pressing issues that were set forth in the 2020-21 Statement of District Needs. These are affordable housing, quotable housing, parks, and schools, and these are my priorities. Under affordable housing, I look forward to sharing my considerable knowledge of affordable housing issues with the Housing Committee to promote housing in our community. And this has become even more acute when, according to the 2000 census, 6.5% of our residents live under the poverty line. And this is a strong priority for me. For parks is the next. Under COVID, we certainly need more public spaces and eliminate privatization of public spaces. I support the efforts of the Parks and Waterfront Committee to advocate for more public spaces and addressing repairing the aging East River Esplanade. And then schools and education, my goodness, the schools were just closed again. So I'm very concerned that our students have the computers and equipment that we need. And luckily we have so many of our committees are working on this area. The School and Education Committee is advocating for more schools and childcare, as well as for childcare for first responders has to be a priority. The Health and Senior Services is talking about the lack of computers for underprivileged children. And then we've learned that children in homeless shelters may have gotten computers, but they don't have internet. So these are certainly areas that I think the community board can have an impact. And I look forward to working with members of our committees on these areas that we have prioritized for the community board. I will work with everybody. I guess I never really addressed that. I don't believe in cliques. I'm not a member of a clique. I'm doing this for the good of the community board and the community. And I am certainly willing and able to work with everyone on the community board.
Harrison?
Hi, yes. Thank you, Sherry, for taking this time to answer some of our questions.
Sure.
So my question is, you discussed in depth how you're very into the notion of expanding public participation and ensuring that the community is really involved. Well, I guess my question has to be that many view the sometimes exceedingly lengthy meetings that this board happens to have as a sort of hindrance to public participation and the ability for members of the public to be truly involved throughout the whole meeting by staying by and spectating and waiting through the public session. So my question to you has to be, what would your approach to helping to kind of, I guess, consolidate some of the stuff that happens in the meetings and shortening it in order to ensure that more members of the public are able to stay engaged?
Well, as I pointed out, I think the meetings have to be run more efficiently. Some of the things I said was, that we would have specific times that we could speak on a topic. I want all points of view to be heard, but certainly there's no need to have people talk. Talk. I think every board member should have an opportunity to speak. and they should take their first shot at the first time that they had to speak. I don't know, we were told, I attended the zoning and development meeting, and the question was raised. We had several hundred members of the public, and many of them had questions and we didn't have time for, but it has to be realistic. I think the way that Elaine and Elizabeth handled it made sense. We heard the first dozen or so people who spoke really presented the issues that the community had. Everybody else was basically just repeating it, but the fact that we had them send their comments to the board office where we have them is I thought was a very good way to handle that. And then the question was, I talked today about, well, what happens if we're allowed to have meetings back in person? What would we do? Should we have hybrid meetings? And maybe that's a good idea for people who can attend meetings, that we should do. But then I think we have so much greater participation by the public, by the Zoom meetings. So I think my position would be, would take it case by case, but a hybrid situation, I think, would be a way to get more people following, what we're going on. And that's really what we need to do. We need people to think that the community board is the place they need to go. And unless they know that we're here and what we can do, we don't get that from them. So that's how I would, hopefully that answered your question.
Ellen?
Hello. Hi, Sherry. I just want to first preface this with, I think both Sherry and Russell are excellent, and I think either would be great chairs of the committee. And so I think a lot of the negativity strikes me as a little silly. And I do want to say, I think Alita leaves some big shoes to fill. I think she's been terrific as chair, in my opinion. So just trying to bring a little bit more positivity. My question is the following, Sherry. I've had a lot of phenomenal discussions with some of our newer board members, particularly around issues of equity. And I think any one of them, I can think of numerous of them, would be phenomenal chairs or co-chairs of our new equity or racial justice task force. So my question is, would you consider appointing someone who's a first or second year board member to be a co-chair or chair of that new task force, which, as I understand it, is still somewhat in flux?
This is Billy. I wasn't sure who's, Billy, is this you? I didn't hear who. Yeah, hi. Yep. Well, let me tell you about my plan. I've mentioned this to the other people running tonight. I want to set up a cabinet. Our executive committee is too big. Under the bylaws, it includes all the vice chairs and the secretaries, but it also includes all the committee chairs. So we're talking maybe 25, 30 people. That's not a working situation. I'm going to set up a cabinet of the electeds. So it'll be me, the two vice chairs, and the secretaries. And they're going to be my sounding board. And we're going to come up with ideas because they are different. They're younger than I am. I know you think I'm 21, but I'm really not. They are, though. So we'll get their ideas going forward. And the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to charge them with, is to look at all our committees. We're going to look, we have 19 committees and 3 task forces, and there's only 50 of us. So let's look at our committees and see how they're set up. Then we have to look at the committee chairs. Some of our committee chairs have been there forever. So maybe what we need to do is, maybe in some cases where our committee chairs are well knowledge, maybe we need to have 3, have a new person come in to learn the ropes. So to answer your question, I have no problem with a new person. I'd like the person to be part of that committee for a year, though I know with diversity that would be an issue. But if somebody's been in the committee, we're all doers. We all know how to run meetings. We know how to do things. So to say, no, you can't be a committee chair unless you've been on the community board for, 3-4 years, that makes no sense. We have so many, I've had the opportunity to speak to our new members. They are terrific. They have so many ideas that they want to contribute. And if one of them has a particular interest in a committee and the committee chairs may be ready. Some of you have told me they're ready to move on. So to answer your question, no, I would not have any problem about appointing somebody who's a first or second year member of the community board to a committee, but I would want them to have served on that committee before I would appoint them as a co-chair.
Thank you. And I don't know if it's fair to give Russell a chance to answer as well, but I'll leave that to you, Gail.
Well, what we can do, if there are any questions at the end, if we can just move this forward, but if there are any questions at the end where board members feel that they want to ask that same question of Russell, that's fine. But once again, if everybody will try to keep their questions succinct and different from whatever has already been asked, because we really are trying to keep within some type of a reasonable time frame. Craig?
Hi, thank you. Before asking my question, I just need to express my frustration with how this discussion has been handled tonight. This is my third time voting for the board chair position since I've been on the board. And in neither of the prior votes that I participated in did our discussion devolve into personal attacks and pointed questions that, when occurring in a public domain, only serve to divide our board and create this perception that people are going to have now. Both candidates have had the opportunity to call each and every member, and I suspect these discussions have taken place and allowed everyone voting tonight to come to a decision, as we have in the past, the decisions that had generally been made before we arrived at the meeting, or in this case, entered the Zoom meeting. That should have been sufficient, but it's too late now, and I'm really concerned that how are we going to move forward from this? And now that this has turned into something that I'd expect to see in a political election. I mean, we're past that, and now it's like I'm having flashbacks. Because if I were a member of the public attending tonight's meeting, it would seem as if the personal priorities, policy priorities, and viewpoints are now front and center. And that's never been what this vote was about or should be about. We should be, and we are above this. And I hope whoever ascends to the chair position is well versed in healing and uniting people, given how this is just seemed to divide everyone tonight. So then my two questions that I have are, and I'd love to hear Russell respond as well, if possible, since Joey said we can ask those questions of Russell, is what will each candidate do if the board takes a position that the chair doesn't support? And how will you help heal this board after tonight's, frankly, off the rails discussion? I'm sorry, I'm just, it frustrates me as a board member. And
Craig, we can ask that at the very end of both candidates, but let's just get the other questions that are still open-ended. And there were enough people who called and requested being able to hear from the candidates and ask questions. Because of Zoom, it's very different from some of the past elections, and I understand the frustration, but we all have agreed that perhaps this has gone in a certain direction that nobody expected. On the other hand, if we can just ask substantive questions, we can get back to the question that you've just raised and ask it of both candidates, but I would particularly like to see if there are any other questions that will deal with how they will perform as chairs, and separate and apart from addressing the criticisms and the healing and all the rest. We'll get there, but please, let's just see if there's anything else regarding their skill sets that people have. If anybody has a question that has to do more with what Craig has just raised, would they please lower their hand, because we will go ahead and address that at the very end. But are there any other questions from anybody whose hand is raised that will indeed give us more information about the approach that Sherry will take? And if necessary, we'll go back and ask that question of Russell as well. Okay, Carolina?
Carolina, I saw you just got up from your screen, so maybe we come right back to you after Lori.
Yeah, let's do Lori then. Lori?
Oh, wait, there's Carolina.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what happened.
Go ahead, go.
No, it's you. You had
No,
another.
I put my hand down. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. Lori?
Okay, just a quick question.
Sure.
Sherry, I really respect your experience, and I am very impressed with the things that you have done in your life. And I know that there was a time that, you know, that people raised their kids in the suburbs because the schools were, you know, there wasn't a reliable option for people to put their kids in public school in the city. And I am fully in support of everybody doing the very best that they can for their children. That being said, do you think the fact that you have not put your kids through any school situation in the city will have an impact on, or like, can you put yourself in the position of, you know, a young set of parents who are having an issue with the public schools?
Well, I was a PTA president, so I certainly was familiar with public schools. I don't think that having a child who went to public school in New Jersey is different than having a child in public school in New York. I mean, you want your best for your child. I mean, my grandkids live in the Upper East Side, and they go to school. You know, they go to school here, and I'm certainly familiar with what my son and daughter-in-law talk about that. So no, you know, there are many things as chair that we haven't, you know, that we would not have experienced. But I've been a parent, and that certainly would give me sensitivity to how people are raising their children. So no, I don't think it's really relevant that my kids did not go to public school in Manhattan.
Okay, thank you.
Sharon?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let me do this as, oh, okay. So I just wanted to echo Billy Friedman's remarks about how the board will be well served by either Russell or Sherry. Having said that, I also wanted to follow up comments regarding the board having cliques. They do, and they exist in school, they exist in work, they exist in communities. We have them, and we navigate them. And we navigate them successfully. On the board, I don't belong to a clique. I consider myself one of the cool girls, by the way. Having said that, I'd like to ask you a question, Sherry, and also I would like for Russell to answer the question as well at the end. And so, Sherry, I think both you and Russell have focused on diversity. And I do apologize, Russell, I didn't have a chance to ask you this question as well. I didn't think of it until after I thought about Sherry's remarks and your remarks this evening. But both of you focused on diversity in two different ways. One was outreach, board outreach, to various communities, and including Isaacson Homes, which I think is fantastic, and also outreach to the new board members, which I think is fantastic. And my question is, there appears to be, to me, a lack of diversity among the committee co-chairs. And Sherry, you alluded to that as a matter of fact. And so I am interested in whether or not you can include in your thinking in terms of diversity, racial diversity towards who becomes co-chairs of various committees. And let me emphasize that your comments regarding many co-chairs having served for a long time very much resonated with me because my thinking is that by serving for a long period of time, and I mean, in some cases in excess of 5, 6, 7 years, there's a lack of diversity in thought. There is a lack of embracement of people who hold opposing views. That is what is the worst part of not having a diverse committee co-chairs across the board. So not just including new people who have arrived, but also including people of color as co-chairs and other individuals who in fact may hold differing views. I appreciate your patience with my question, Sherry, but I wanted you to delve a little bit more into that. And also, Russell, if you could answer that question at the end as well, I really do appreciate it. And just to be clear, the question is would you include in your diversity initiatives, making sure that there's age diversity, because I am 21 years old, making sure there's racial diversity as well, and that's it. Thank you.
And another diversity that I think we need to address is economic diversity. You know, we have all those that, you know, we talk about, but I don't look in anybody's pocketbook, but I think if you're on whatever end of the spectrum, income spectrum you are, I think you do have a different perspective on it. And that's one of the, as I said, I'm going to be putting this cabinet together. I as chair do not have all the answers. And that's why I would get the benefit of our group. We're talking about 7 different people who are diverse themselves. And certainly I would consider, I mean, you know, this is now we're talking about a quota system. So I can't say that, you know, because you're, I would consider you to be a co-chair because you're a talented person and what you can contribute. I would have a hard time saying that I would need to make you a co-chair because you're a Black woman. That wouldn't be why I would choose you, but that wouldn't be the reason I wouldn't choose you, I guess is the point. I've spoken to, as I said, the board members, we have many, the easiest thing is racial diversity. We have many talented African-American people on the board who I think should be serving as chair. And so I'm going round and round. Yes, I certainly would consider diversity as one of the criteria for chair, as I would consider age and gender, and as I said, and economics. You know, that we need to represent our community. We can't. We all. You know, it's like we talk in Washington. I mean, all those white-haired men. We're not that. Our group is much more diverse, and our chairs and our board members and our public participation should reflect our community. So that, you know, that's how I feel about that.
I'd like to go to Elizabeth Rose and then to Lorraine Brown because neither of them has asked a question yet. So Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. This is a question for both candidates, and I think it is a very different tone and tenor from the questions we've had so far. I would like to know from each of Russell and Shari, what is the thing, and by the word thing, I am deliberately being very broad and inclusive in what the answer could be, that you are most proud of your experience on the community board, and what was your contribution to whatever that thing was?
Okay, Sherry.
Okay, I think most recently, that being co-chair of the Voting Reform Task Force, I think we served a major public benefit by having the 2 meetings that we had on the ways to vote. I mean, voting this November was a challenge, and yet we reached out to our public and our board members, frankly, to tell them how they could vote early. I did a public service announcement on how to fill your absentee ballot. And then we worked on getting people to, we were aware of the situation on the difficulty in early voting, and we reached out to our elected officials to do that. And I think that was a major public service that we did. I mean, I was very active in the charter change when I worked on the charter change committee. I loved the way that Alita got all the community boards together to work on a topic, and that would be another thing that I would be advancing. If there's something that all the community boards in Manhattan can work on, we should do that, because the more support we can show for a topic, we would do that. And then my participation in zoning and development. As you said, I am a land use attorney, so I have a knowledge of the subject, and I hopefully have been able to contribute to that. But I think the most important thing I've done as a member of the community board is this last year in my role in bringing together both Dan Court to talk about the new legislation on voting, and then the wonderful speaker Susan Lerner from Common Cause to talk to us about how we can vote and answer all our questions. So I think that of my community board experience, that I would say would be my high point.
Thank you. Russell?
I think we'll let Russell answer that at the end. There are 2 or 3 other questions, if you don't mind, because
Actually, Gail, I think it would be extremely helpful to have them answer the same question back to back.
All right.
Thanks. So my answer to that question is the work that we did on contact tracing earlier this year. So we had a number of meetings on that issue and on different facets of that issue. There were a number of people who were involved in putting that together. It was a group of folks. Sometimes, in our discussions, we had multiple meetings to talk about how those programs should go, what the key issues were, how best to present those to the community in a way that would be helpful for people and informative and balanced, because sometimes there were issues that people had different sides on, and where there was a public debate going, and we just wanted to make sure that we were informing the community in an even-handed way so that people could make up their own minds and make their own informed decisions. So in the course of preparing for those meetings, we had a number of meetings. I think we didn't always agree on how things were going to go, but I think I played a very constructive role in kind of bridging the gaps and bringing people together, and again, forming consensus in terms of how these meetings should go and how they should be run. And I think the results really speak for themselves. I'm very, very proud of how all of those multiple meetings that we did on these subjects came out. Some of those were meetings that I ran or helped run, and I would put those forward as examples of the kind of leadership that I display in meetings like that. And and again, and just sort of an ability to master the subject matter and understand what it is that we were discussing, and then also run a very productive and good meeting where folks were able to ask their questions, get their viewpoints out. We were able to hear in a balanced way from the 2 sides, and ultimately were able to come up with resolutions that got widespread support, both in the committee and in the full board. And so I think those are exemplars both of how I work with members on the board and with how I lead meetings and lead efforts like that. and I'm very proud of what the result was.
Thank you, and thank you, Gail.
Lorraine, I'm going to ask that Lorraine, who is the only person who has not asked a question, ask her question. Then we will go back and ask a couple of the questions to Russell that were asked to Sherry that board members requested that we do. So Lorraine?
Yes, this is Mrs. Brown. You have to forgive my voice because I've had major surgery and my throat is still healing from the tubes that were placed down my throat while I was under anesthesia. Each and every board member had the responsibility to perform due diligence. For example, Will Sanchez and Monica McCain provided each and every board member and the public interviews on CB8 Speaks. Everyone should have watched those interviews. 2, if you had questions or concerns, you should have reached out to the candidates. I didn't expect this board meeting to go in this under this current setting. That by character assassination, bullying, that doesn't work for me. The chair is to serve as a traffic cop. And I'm asking, what is our goal as a community board or as a board? Is it to be fair and balanced, which would be unrealistic because we have so many personalities? My previous participation in voting for chairs, the candidate's name was presented at the board meeting, and it was either yes, yay, or nay. Why are we going through this now? Why are we taking that precious time? It's been 2.5 hours again, and this is the first item on the agenda. I mean, come on, folks. Come on, please, let's be respectful. Let's do the vote. If you have concerns, you should have done your homework. And that's all I wanted to say. And thank you, everybody, for allowing me to express my thoughts.
Thank you. If everybody would just put their hands down, that their hands are up right now, and a board member who had specifically asked a question of Sherry will take 2 other questions of Russell, and then we will proceed. Alita?
Alita, you're muted on your phone.
I know, I'm sorry. This is to Sherry because I asked Russell a tough question before, so it's Sherry's turn. When you were mayor of that town in New Jersey, what was the diversity of that town in which you served as mayor?
It was primarily white. We had a large Asian community, and we had a smaller African-American community. But there was certainly economic diversity in the community that had to be addressed.
Well, other than economic diversity, how could you use that experience in a particularly heavily represented or heavily dominated town to maximize or improve diversity here with the community board's involvement with other groups that may be not fully represented, but where it's a smaller part of the community by demographic?
Because
I'm not all clear, but I may not be.
Because I have the skills to outreach to people and to bring people together. I mean, what I did in Livingston was having to have diverse opinions and bring people together. I work with the diverse communities in town but what I presented was my approach to increasing our participation, not, as I said, not only on the community board, but in public participation. And that would be how I would continue to do that. And I mean, I'm not really sure the point that you're trying to make, because there was not a large Black population in Livingston. That means I can't address it in here. I'm really not sure the point. I have the skills to bring people together. I've always done that. I've always been looked upon as a leader because I do that. I know how to reconcile different points of view, and I would just use that skill here. And I'm at a loss to figure out what the point that you were trying to make. I don't think it's apropos to how I could handle diversity in our neighborhood. So I'm sorry, that's the best answer I can give you.
Okay.
Okay, I actually think, with respect to the time, is there any question that somebody has already asked, Sherry, that you feel still has to be asked of Russell? Not a new question, but something that's already been asked. Okay, Kaz?
Yeah, I suggest that we move the meeting, get to the vote. This is getting on and on and on and on.
I do want to respond to the questions that were asked.
I can have dinner, I can have a glass of wine, and I can have my espresso.
Okay, so we're now going to go on to hear from Tricia. 1 minute, Tricia, just telling people who you are. And thank you, Sherry.
No, sorry. I want to respond to the questions that were asked of me directly. There were a number of questions that were asked of both candidates. I think my answer was deferred until the end because I was supposed to get a chance to answer those. And so one of the questions I want to address is Craig's question about bringing the board together. But in doing that, I mean, I also want to just address what Craig and Lorraine and others have said about the way that this meeting has gone. So this is a departure from the procedures we've used in other recent elections. We don't usually take questions like this. And I think the reason for that we typically haven't done that, is it's predictable that a meeting with questions like this could devolve into negativity. I think it's unfortunate that that happened. I actually made that point and made the exact same points that Lorraine made to Alita about, the fact that we've been making calls and reaching out to folks for an extended period now. People who have questions for Sherry and me have had ample opportunity to ask them. And so doing a sort of question period in the board meeting is just likely to devolve into negativity and probably isn't going to be that informative for folks, let alone the timing concern. And I know we're all very concerned about time. So again, I think it was sort of predictable that this was going to go that way. I would just point out, if you look at the bulk of the questions, I think the idea that this was done because of some groundswell by new members is a little bit difficult to believe. So I think what we have is a situation where rules were changed and we did a departure from what we've done in the past because some people wanted to do it that way. And I'm happy to answer questions, as I've shown. I answered every single question that was posed to me. But I do think I echo what folks have said, that this meeting is a far cry, I think, from what most members really wanted to see in a meeting like this. So I think in terms of how to bring the board together, I think the answer is to have a chair who's going to be committed to fairness and uniformity, not changing the rules to get a certain outcome. And I hope that this meeting exemplifies for people on the board who want that, which side is more likely to do that. And again, I'm very committed to doing that. And I think I've demonstrated that throughout my time on the board. With regard to the question about, I think the other question for me was about diversity. This is something that I mentioned in my CB8 Speaks interview. There was a question about diversity on the board and what can be done about that. And what I pointed out is that even though the chair and the members don't appoint the other members, that's done by the elected officials, what the chair can have an impact on is the appointment of committee chairs. And I committed to the fact that that was something that I would keep in mind in appointing committee chairs. It's something that's very, very important to me. I think it's something that we have to do. And I think in terms of diversity and the concern for diversity on the board, one of the things that I heard from a number of people, and it's a concern that I share very strongly, is the concern that the social justice committee that we created, which was a big priority, we had a long meeting about this, has not done anything in the time since it's been created. It's been several months. I think a lot of folks are very concerned about that. I think part of the problem with that is the leadership of that committee. And I think the reluctance to appoint diverse leadership to that committee because of sort of arbitrary restrictions on new members or other kinds of considerations that frankly I'm not privy to. But I think that's been a sort of black spot on the board. And I just want to point out that I'm very committed to getting that committee off the ground and appointing diverse leadership for that committee.
I'm sorry, I need to say something here, because that was an unfair attack on me, that it was a reluctance to appoint people and a reluctance to get this committee off the ground. And you and I have not talked about it. Shari and I have not talked about it either. Had anyone come and talk to me, I would have been happy. And I've always tried to be open and honest about what the situation was. So to say that there is a reluctance to appoint people or there's a reluctance to do something and to get it off the ground is just not, it's just not accurate. I understand that you want to do this and want to get off the ground, and I support you and support everyone who has an interest, and many people back in July expressed a lot of interest in it. So I have no reluctance to do that. It's been, there are other issues that have been involved, and if I've made mistakes, I always own up to and take ownership and say I could do better and try to do better. So to suggest that, I just had to say, even though it's not part of the meeting, the board members are all here. A lot of people from the public are here, and I'm sorry if this was considered inappropriate, but I just felt that I had to say something because I thought it was an unfair characterization. So my apologies to all, and thank you.
What I think we should do now, before we have the other candidates speak, let's just go ahead and take the vote, and we'll close out this first part of the meeting. So, Will, do you have the vote sheets ready?
Yeah. Billy is going to take the
Billy.
Yeah, Billy is going to take the first vote, and then the other secretaries will cycle through. Don't worry, they will not be counting the votes for themselves. I'm going to lower everyone's hands, and Billy, you should be unmuted at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to ask people, we're going to go in alphabetical order. We're going to ask that you either say Russell Squire, if that's who you're voting for, or Sherry Weiner, or you can abstain or say not voting for cause. I'm going to go slowly here because I know Rebecca filling out the Excel sheet, it may take a little more time than simple yes or no's. So let's get started.
And I'm going to unmute about 5 or 10 people ahead. So just be prepared to unmute yourself so we can move quickly.
Great. Are you all set with the first 10, Will, unmuted?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, Aronson.
Russell Squire.
Ashby.
Pass.
Barron.
Sherry Weiner.
Barton.
Russell Squire.
Birnbaum.
Sherry Weiner.
Boris.
Russell Squire.
Guerrero.
Russell Squire.
Brown.
Sherry Weiner.
Camp.
Muted.
Pass? Can you? Oh.
I can hear you now, Lita.
Not hear me. I'm sorry. All this technology. Pass. Pass. Thanks.
Okay. Shockey.
Sherry Weiner.
2.
Russell Squire.
Cone.
Sherry Weiner.
Coleman.
Russell Squire.
Correa.
Russell Squire.
Dangor.
Russell Squire.
Barber.
I think both would make great candidates, but I vote for Russell Squire.
Oh, you told me.
Freeland, Russell Squire. Hartzog.
I believe he left. He had to leave to pick up his son, he said.
He was there just a second ago, so maybe come back to him.
Okay. Halpern.
Russell Squire.
Higgins.
Russell Squire.
Johnson.
Oh, so sorry. She's at the bottom of the list, just because of where she's on the phone. Wilma,
No
it's *6. Wilma, will you
Russell Squire. Russell Squire.
Thank you. Kono.
Russell Squire.
All right. Later.
Russell Squire.
Lamort.
Russell Squire.
Malik.
Russell Squire.
Mason.
Sherry Weiner.
Morris.
Russell Squire.
Newman.
Russell Squire.
Marshall.
Russell Squire.
Patch.
Sherry Weiner.
Pearson Paynes.
Russell Squire.
Pope Marshall.
Pass.
Hopper.
Sherry Weiner.
Price. Price.
I don't see her here.
Well, I guess we can come back. Rose.
Sherry Weiner.
Roger.
Russell Squire.
Salcido. Sanchez.
Russell Squire.
Schneider.
Russell Squire.
Jim Mamora.
Russell Squire.
Spangaletti.
I'm going to pass to prolong the meeting.
Squire.
Squire.
Maya.
Charlie Winner.
Tejo.
Squire.
Wald.
Russell Squire.
Walsh.
Sherry Weiner.
I never voted.
Warren.
Russell Squire.
Weiner.
Sherry Weiner.
Zimmerman.
Russell Squire.
Okay, let's go back up to the passes. Ashby.
Elizabeth, try now. You were muted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, yes.
Sherry Weiner.
Camp.
She muted.
Abstain.
Okay. Next, we don't have Hartzog back yet, right?
He's here.
Hartzog?
Abstain.
Okay. Pope Marshall?
1 second, she's muted.
I'm sorry. Can you come back to me? I apologize.
Sure. Is Price here?
She is. She.
Jerry Weiner.
Spagnoletti?
Chair Squire.
Thanks. And before we come back to Pope Marshall, I just want to apologize. I mispronounced May's last name, which is Malik. Pope Marshall, I think, is our last one.
Sherry Weiner.
Okay. That's everybody.
Hey, Billy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was on mute at the time, so I didn't actually get to vocalize it, I don't think. Did you catch my vote?
I think we heard Russell Squire. Did we get that?
You just heard my mouth, yes.
Okay.
I wanted to say it out loud. Russell Squire.
Sorry about that.
Before we move on, I'm sorry, Billy, do you have I didn't know if it would take time to tabulate the vote.
We have the tally.
Waiting
Do you want me to give the tally now?
If you have it, because we have Borough President Gail Brewer, who has been waiting patiently and I guess fascinated with what's going on, because we still have a lot of members of the public who are here listening to this. So I wanted to not take up her whole evening and see if she would like to speak at this point. But if you'd like to give the results and you have them, then we should do that.
Yeah, I have the results. So there were 48 votes cast. The results are for Russell Squire, 31, Sherry Weiner, 15, and 2 abstentions.
Thank you, Billy. Russell, where are you, Russell? Make a sound so we could see you. I could see you on the screen.
He is muted. Just give me 1 second.
Thank you, Will.
Congratulations, I guess.
Thank you.
Where are
Thank
you?
very
I
much.
don't see him. There you go.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Russell. Now you could loosen your tie and take off your jacket.
That's
and,
right. That's right. So
it's
thank you very
exciting
much.
to have. So I wanted to say thank you, and we'll be able, I don't like to use the word transition in this fraught time in Washington, but we'll be able to work together in this period, and congratulations.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much. And as I said, I will be president of the whole board. So thank you all.
You're welcome to, and for participating. I know that this has been long and a difficult process, probably mostly for the candidates and for the people on the board who are getting frustrated. Russell called and asked why we're doing this. Other people called and asked why we're doing this. And I wanted to do it this way because Zoom is not, it's a replacement, but it is not, or it's a substitute, but not a replacement for in-person meetings where we see what people are like. We see what they do, how they respond to things at the board. We have a chance to chat with them coming in and leaving or during pauses in meetings. And we didn't have that. And for new members, both the current new members and even those who have been on the board for a year and a half, we lost 9 months because of COVID of seeing each other in person. And so it felt that the questions were right to give people more of an opportunity to hear from each other and see each other. That they went a little sideways, I will take responsibility for. But I just thought, as I always do, that more information is better than less information. So I really am full of gratitude for the candidates for taking this in good stride, and for the board members in asking the questions and listening to the answers. So thank you all very much. Okay, so why don't we have Borough, and also for my questions, I know that a lot of you had questions about my questions, and I'm happy to talk to any of you as a group in an email or individually on the phone if you'd like. So in the meantime, let's get Borough President Brewer, and welcome.
Thank you very much. I will be very quick. Congratulations, Russell. Terry, thank you for running, but my real hero is Alida. So, but congratulations to everyone. So a couple quick things. First of all, just a piece of information that's positive. So I'm a member of the National League of Cities, and this is the week when they're meeting virtually. And the census person there brought up a map. It was very interesting. It had blue for cities that have done well and red for everybody else. It was interesting. The cities in the United States, despite all of the challenges that board faced and we faced, and you were out constantly trying to get people to sign up for the census. New York was very blue, and the rural areas in this country were absolutely 100% red, meaning that they had put no effort into it. And all I can think of is all the times they're at the table, handing out, putting things in stores, etc. So, you know, you should be proud of the fact that, you know, God knows what the numbers are going to look like. But you should be very proud that you had a big contribution, because the area that was most challenged was yours. So I just want to say congratulations. I'll get you a copy of the map, because you'll be very proud of it. Second issue, just positive. I want to thank Alida and all of you, and certainly Isabel from our office on Kohler. You know, it's quite, there are people there who've got COVID, just like there are people who've got COVID everywhere in terms of staffing. But the fact that you have put together this support mechanism and the work that you've been doing with the Cornell Tech and Kohler, it's very unique. And I just want to say congratulations. I know it's only going to be enhanced as time goes on. And the residents will certainly be continuing to be very, very pleased and learning and so on and so forth. And of course, who will get the most out of it will be the students at Cornell Tech. So big plus to you. In terms of Roosevelt Island, I know you spoke to the assembly member who is on the banking committee. I am very focused. We're going to be sending letters to every bank we can find under every auspice, from the community banks to the credit unions to the big banks. And I actually talked to quite a few of the big banks today, and they are interested. So I think this is one of these possibilities that's going to work out. And goodness knows there's plenty of space and opportunities for location on Roosevelt Island. We're all talking about Lenox Hill Hospital. I'm going to work as closely as I can with the community and the council member and the community board. I don't need to talk more because you're up on it as much as I am. We have no resolution. Blood center is the same thing. I was quite shocked at the way in which the park would be in the shadows when I saw the map, and what are they going to do to be able to mitigate that? I have no idea. So, but I think it's a learning process, and we're all working, and that shows the reason for the work that you do. The schools, we know that there's no school tomorrow, but the focus of technology is ongoing. We are sitting with, I'm pretty upset about this, to put it mildly. We're sitting here with about, I don't know, $15 million in the bank, can't spend it for devices. That's your money. It's the money that we allocated a year ago. We've been fussing about it for months and months. We finally got a sign off from OMB and Board of Department of Education. But guess what? There's like 3 other hoops to go through in terms of spending for individual devices, because the Board of Department of Education is so used to having those carts that they can't figure out how to actually purchase a device for students. So we're working on it, but I can say it's beyond frustrating to have that money sitting there and so many devices not in the hands of young people. I'm going to keep focusing on this public realm idea. Every time I talk to sanitation issues, business issues, street issues, bus issues, bicycle issues, and so on, we've got to find somebody who can look at all these street issues. We have had so many, not in your area, but other places in the borough over open streets. Open the street, close the street. Oh, we closed the street. Oh my goodness, you shouldn't have closed the street, but there was nothing happening on the street, but there could have been something happening on the street. And so we have to figure this out, and it's not done correctly. We have on the, we're continually working on this housing task force. We will very soon have some suggestions. It's an ongoing issue, how to build affordable housing. That's certainly one of your priorities. We've been talking from the Furman Center to experts around the country and in New York, and I promise you very soon we'll have something to say about it. In terms of tenants, on November 23rd at 6 o'clock, it'll be on our website and in the newsletters. There will be a Zoom discussion online of all the tenant possibilities, because when the moratorium is over, it's going to be a real challenge. As you know, community board applications are coming up. They'll soon be able to be accessed, and then they'll be due sometime in February. So you've got lots of time for new members and those who want to reapply. And I hope it's a great board, and I hope you do reapply. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail.
Hear me? Will?
Barely.
Will, can you hear? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to say, I want to give credit. I think I already did to the people on the census, since that was the first thing that Gail referred to, which would be Will Sanchez, Lorraine Brown, and Sandrea Coleman, for working really hard, not just in this district, but around Manhattan, focusing on communities that might not have otherwise have responded to the census, and reaching out to people who are away and just trying to get the numbers up. So you really deserve a big round of applause, and thank you. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, let's hear from Tricia. Tricia, can you give us a 1-minute overview of who you are so everybody will know?
Everybody, so I had remarks, but I'm changing them. I think that tonight has shown us that we have a lot of work to do on our board, and I've been serving on this board or working with this board since 2013. And between my years of service on the board and calls to all of you, I think that you know a little bit about my background. So instead of telling you more about who I am, I'm gonna make a promise to you. And that promise is that in the next year, I promise that I will work on building community amongst ourselves. I promise that I'm gonna find new ways to engage our members and to create avenues for new leadership. And I promise that I'm going to work with the rest of the chairs, the chair and the rest of the executive committee and all of you to be more efficient and effective in our meetings and in our efforts to engage with our community and advocate on behalf of it. It's really been a tremendous honor to be working with you and to be your second vice chair for the last 3 years. And I'm extremely honored to be working as the first vice chair. So I'm an open book. I'm here to talk to you at any point, and thank you again.
Thank you so much. Unless there are any questions for Tricia, let's go on to Valerie, who's our candidate for second vice chair.
First, I want to say congratulations to Russell, and I think he's going to make a great chair. And I want to say thank you to the nominating committee for reporting my name out. I haven't been a member of the community board that long, but I have been attending community board meetings for a very long time. I think, as I mentioned, when I met with the nominating committee, I do a lot of things. I'm on the board of something called the Women's Prison Association at Home, and we work with women who've been involved in the criminal justice system, and I've done that for over 20 years. I also am a trustee of my church on the Upper East Side, the Brick Presbyterian Church, and I run a neighborhood association, the East 72nd Street Neighborhood Association. I am really involved in community affairs, and I thought that this was a good way to get involved more with the board. I think tonight has shown that we all need to know each other a lot better. One of the things I recommended is not only seeing the CVs of the new members, but everybody's CV coming around so we can get to know who we are at the very beginning of each year, find out what we're doing. We all have a lot of talents, and I have an open email and phone number, and you can all call me whenever you have an idea. And I'm really honored to try to do this on behalf of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Any questions for Valerie? If not, we'll go on to Anthony Cohen, who is one of the candidates for secretary. Anthony?
Be unmuted now.
Thank you. Why am I here tonight? I'm tired. We all are. Tired of COVID, tired of meeting electronically, tired of having misplaced our very sense of community. As an architect and Upper East Side resident for 40 years, though, my feeling of exhaustion at the current moral horror runs deeper. Within our district live the wealthiest and the poorest New Yorkers, yet heartless development rules our neighborhood and our city. West of Lexington Avenue lies the largely protected subdistrict of Fifth, Madison, and Park Avenues. To the east lies increasing hospital expansion and luxury residential construction, driving out affordable housing, encroaching on our light and air, and further overloading our fragile infrastructure. Through it all, we make our best efforts to represent with our small voices those who have no voice at all. What hurts the most powerless of us hurts us all. That's why I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Rebecca Dangor, who is another candidate for secretary. Rebecca?
I would like to thank the nominating committee for their continued support, and I promise to continue to strive to make sure all of your hard work is accurately accounted for in both the minutes and the vote counts. I would be honored to have your vote.
Thanks, Rebecca. Any questions for Rebecca? If not, we'll move on to Billy Friedland, who is our third candidate for secretary.
You have one question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Never mind. Sorry.
Chuck's hand was up, but it went down. Okay, Billy.
Yeah, just one more, Chuck. Sorry. So hey, everybody, Billy Freeland. I think I've gotten to know most, if not all of you over these last several years, but first just want to thank the nominating committee for their continued confidence in me. For those who know a little less about me, I'm an attorney. I've been on the community board for several years now, including 2 years where I was co-chair of the Charter Revision Task Force, getting to work with Alita and so many others on that really important issue. And I've been a secretary for the last 2 years and running for a third and final term. And I'm also, I love our community. And one thing that I'd love to see more people, if you're interested, to get involved in is I serve on the junior board at the Isaac Center. And we could always use, some more hands. But, I just want to cut to the chase and say a little bit about, why I want to be a secretary again. I think as tonight has shown somewhat, there's more work to be done to bring our board together. I tend to be an optimist. I think there's a lot of, positive energy and great relationships on this board. But a few things I'd like to see us do more of, and as secretary, I'd like to take a leadership role in, is outreach, particularly to communities that don't often hear from us, or maybe don't always get to attend our meetings, particularly on Roosevelt Island and Holmes and Isaacs as well. I also want to see our racial justice task force really get off the ground. And I have some ideas in particular about outreach we can do to bring in more public members potentially to give that committee some real energy and leadership. And then finally, I think there's a lot more we can do on mentorship. I'd like to see us build deeper and more sustained relationships from more experienced members to newer members. But I also think, particularly with community board term limits, that there's more that can be done to try to take some of the deeper specialized knowledge that some of our members have, whether it's on issues of zoning or landmarks or housing, and to try to impart some of that wisdom to our newer members to make sure that the board's expertise remains throughout the years. So those are just some thoughts I have. Again, grateful for the confidence you all have expressed to me in the past, and look forward to working with you all in 2021.
Thank you, Billy. Any questions for Billy? Chuck?
No, it's not a question for Billy. I just wanted to suggest, Gail, that we have 5 unanimous people, that we take one vote on all the 5, I mean, no opposition candidates, that we take one vote for all 5, that we don't have to take 5 votes. And we've done that in the past before.
That sounds very okay to me, but let's just hear what Elaine Walsh had. One question. Elaine's hand is up. Yes, Elaine.
Well, they may only be candidates for each position, but there may not be a total support or yes vote. And I'm not sure, and maybe Barbara Chakti is better at this, that we voted for each candidate and did not take them as a group. So I'd like other input besides.
Michelle?
Yes, when I headed up the nominating committee a couple of years ago or last year, whenever it was, I suggested the same action. I was told that that's not possible, that the roll, according to the bylaws, has to be called on each nominee. And that's what we did that night.
All right, well then let's just take a vote on each candidate, but let's do it in the way we do a lot of our votes, where we'll call out the candidate, and then if anybody abstains or does not vote for cause or has any other reason, they can raise their hand. So we'll start with Tricia.
If you'd like to abstain or you're not voting for cause, please raise your hand now.
Done.
Going once, going twice. Seeing no hands, everyone will be recorded as a yes vote for Tricia. Thank you.
Okay. Valerie's next up.
If you would like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, please raise your hand. Going once. Going twice. Okay.
Wait.
Well, it's unanimous. Oh.
Nope. Nope.
Did some?
No.
Elaine, you're unmuted.
I'm sorry. Who are we at? I thought we just did Tricia, and I wasn't registered as a no.
Okay, we'll change that for you.
Okay, so who's the second one you're doing?
Valerie.
Valerie Mason.
Oh, I'm sorry. Get rid of that. Okay. Sorry.
Next up, Anthony Cohen.
Okay, if you are voting no, abstaining, and not voting for cause on Anthony, please raise your hand. Going once, going twice, sold. It's unanimous.
All righty, Rebecca Dangor.
If you'd like to abstain or you're not voting for cause, please raise your hand. Going once, going twice. Seeing none, everyone will be recorded as a yes vote for Rebecca. Thank you.
And last, but certainly not least, Billy Friedland.
If you would like to vote no, yes. If you'd like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, please raise your hand. Elaine Walsh.
It's a no.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none? All right, thank you. We'll have those vote totals ready for you guys in a sec.
While you're doing that, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you. We heard you.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to say in response to Michelle that I just checked with the bylaws and they say that all votes shall be by roll call, except that we have made exceptions because of the nature of Zoom, and we would be here as late as we are, another hour or two, if we did everything by roll. So we've always had that exception, and it seemed that other than the contested chair positions, it made sense for these.
Okay, we're ready. I can read them all for you. For Tricia, it's 47 yes, 1 no. For Valerie, it's 48 yeses, 0 no's, or 0 abstentions. Anthony, 48 to 0 to 0. Me, Rebecca Dangor, 48, 0 to 0. And Billy Freeland, 47 to 1 to 0.
Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you.
Congratulations, I say too. I know that you have all done a fantastic job, the ones that I have been working with over the last few years, and for the new people, I have absolute confidence in Valerie, and I know that Russell will be excellent. I know he is attentive. We have had a lot of conversations in the last couple of weeks, and he was responsive when I talked to him about the negative voting, and we had a lengthy conversation about that. So I know that he will be an excellent chair. This is a board with contentious, opinionated, passionate, engaged people. We're known for that. So it will be, you will do a great job. And that's all I can say is congratulations. So thank you for listening, and now we could move on. Are we ready? We're ready, right? For the next agenda item, landmarks, David and Jane.
Will?
Yes.
There was just one application that we heard on Monday night at the Landmarks Committee meeting, 107 East 64th Street. This was for an extension on the roof of the elevator bulkhead and the stair bulkhead with a connecting vestibule. The committee voted to approve because it's set approximately 29 feet back from the front elevation and I think 15 feet from the rear elevation. It is visible from certain points, or the cladding, the extended chimney required by DOB is visible a bit from Park Avenue going south. So I don't know, there were some people who voted on the other side. David Halpern was one of them. David, did you want to speak to the application?
I think that it was sufficiently, there are enough people in favor that I'm not going to speak at this time.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak?
Michelle has her hand up.
Michelle, do you? Okay, Michelle,
Yeah, just
go ahead.
to comment that in the whereases, one of the whereases said, whereas there was no glazing in the vestibule, my recollection is the vestibule does have windows.
Yes,
So
it does have glazing.
making that correction.
Okay, there is glazing on both sides of the vestibule. Thank you, Michelle. I'll take a look at the resolution and make sure that gets corrected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other, so is there a move to approve?
Marco's hand is up.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Marco has his hand up.
Okay.
Thank you. I would like to call the question.
Thank you, Marco. All in favor? Any opposed? I guess we can do our usual vote, Will.
Okay. So right now, one of our secretaries will take over.
Okay, thank you.
If you'd
Will.
like to, oh, sorry to cut you off. If you'd like to vote no, abstain, or you're not voting for cause, please raise your hand now. May Malik,
And David.
May,
Voting no.
thank you. Alita Camp,
No.
thank you. Sarah Chu,
No.
thank you.
Yeah, David Halpern.
No.
Thank you. Anyone else? All others will be recorded as a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the vote too.
Oh, I see we have two more hands. Mrs. Brown?
Okay. No, please.
She said no.
Sorry, could you repeat that? Okay. Valerie?
Went to the wrong corner to unmute myself. I'm going to abstain from this one.
Okay.
The vote tally for landmarks item 1 are 42 in favor, 5 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
That's the only.
Yeah, that's the end of our committee report. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Alita, are you muted?
I'm sorry, muted again. Okay, let's have I'm just going to read it from the agenda, the Zoning and Development Committee, where we will be talking about the request that was made last night at the zoning meeting. So I think Gail will be taking that on. Is that right, Gail?
That is
Sorry
correct.
about that.
The Community Board 8 issued a request for proposal the beginning of October to hire a consultant who would continue the work that had already been begun, which dealt with zoning changes, which would create the 210-foot height limit, along with the creation of special districts. The RFP was drafted by Elaine, Elizabeth, Alita, Will, and myself, with a lot of help from Adele at the Borough President's Office, which we appreciate. It was then issued to 35 individuals as well as firms. We received 1 response. We interviewed the architect who did respond, who happened to be Tuck Edelson, who did the original study and project work for us. Once again, Alita, myself, Elaine, and Elizabeth interviewed Tuck. We spoke with him for probably an hour and 20 minutes, asked him very detailed questions. He was extremely thoughtful and responsive, and we felt that he would do a good job for us. And where we were very pleased is that city planning, which has been rejecting so many proposals, looked at our pre-applications and said that they would like some changes made, but they didn't discard them. Where there's another not-for-profit that actually also put in a proposal dealing with height limits, and that was rejected. So we think that Tuck actually did very good work for us initially, and we're hopeful that that work can continue. So we have a resolution that has been included in your board packet, which I will quickly read. Whereas in order for Community Board 8 to submit zoning change application for the approved project of setting a 210-foot height limit on avenues east of Lexington Avenue and create special districts, and whereas the consultant will provide planning services and support to Community Board 8 Manhattan Zoning and Development Committee and report to the Zoning and Development Committee and the CB8 chairperson, whereas per the Office of the Manhattan Borough President, a solicitation was prepared and sent to over 30 randomly generated people and firms, and the solicitation was developed and conducted pursuant to the requirements governing small purchases under the New York City Procurement Policy Board rules. And whereas the response to the solicitation had only 1 applicant, Tuck Edelstein of Edelstein Architecture PC, and whereas Tuck Edelstein was interviewed by the co-chairs of Zoning and Development and the chair and first vice chair of the board. The interview confirming that Mr. Edelstein met all the criteria set out in the RFP. Whereas the consultant will build on the pre-application, revise and prepare a formal application for submittal to the New York City Department of City Planning, work with and respond to appropriate city agencies, collaborate and formulate a strategy to gain wide support for the application, and conduct interdivisional meetings. And whereas upon acceptance of the application by the New York City Department of City Planning, there will be an additional scope of work to perform an EAS, CEQR, and ultimately ULURP. And whereas compensation for the contract year, July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, as funding for this specific purpose from City Council discretionary funds, the $15,000, and CB8 budget, $10,000, totaling $25,000. And therefore, the Zoning and Development Committee approves the hiring of Chuck Edelstein for the work to be done for the 210 height limit on the avenues east of Lexington Avenue and the special districts. Therefore, be it resolved that CB8 hereby ratifies the decision of the committee to award the position of consultant to Tuck Edelstein with a written contractual agreement and authorizes the district manager to execute such contract on behalf of CB8 pursuant to the terms of the solicitation. And be it further resolved that the term of the contract will be for the New York City fiscal year 2021 from the period July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021 for 12 months, and they may be renewed for one additional 12-month period by mutual consent of CB8 and the consultant. And be it further resolved that the maximum compensation to be paid for this contract is $25,000 per year. The Zoning and Development Committee approved this contract by vote of 14 voted yes, 0 voted no, and 5 abstained. Are there any questions?
Barbara Rutter has her hand up.
Okay, Barbara.
Okay. I'm uncomfortable with this, and I'm ready to hear the argument back because I may be wrong in my assumption. In all my years on the community board, I never heard that the community board spent this type of money on it and consultants. We've had consultants from the borough president's office or interns. There's been many. The zoning committee had it, the parks committee had it, other committees made, but $10,000 from the community board. Do we have that type of money? I know we often have money left over. It's used to give some bonuses to our hardworking staff. It's used, no, Will, you tell me I'm wrong. It's used to buy like microphones or things like that, or the tablets. I have never heard that this money was being used for us to pay for consultants. Am I wrong?
Will, do you want to answer the question about money for consultants in the board, or would Barbara Chalky like to? I would think if we call on Barbara Chalky as the chair of the finance committee, that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I will just say it is not allowable by city rules to give a bonus out of your budget.
It may not be a bonus, but or maybe it was a raise, but we've done, okay.
Barbara Chucky, you can
unmute. It's the budget committee. We've done consulting contracts before. We're actually only voting on our monies. That we don't vote on discretionary monies, and we have done this in the past. We have done. We can't. We because of the virus, we haven't spent all our money, and this is money that we had in the budget for quite a while. It's a project that we support fully, and we really have to get it done. It's really, some people were concerned that it's going to take us so long. They wanted it to be done sooner. You heard all the people who spoke last night at the zoning committee meeting. So this is very important money, excuse me, and we're lucky that we have discretionary money from the city council and the borough president's office to get it done. Is my opinion on it. It's not unique.
Chuck?
I want to confirm what Barbara said. We have in the past hired outside consultants and used the board's money, whatever was available, to pay for them. And here is Barbara, who knows the finances. We obviously have some money available, and we've got, and the council members also gotten us some other money. So I think this makes sense.
Thank you, Chuck. Rita Popper?
And after Rita, David Halpern has his hand up.
I make a motion to approve.
It's on the floor already.
What?
It's on the floor already. You don't have to make a motion to approve.
To approve.
Okay.
There's
Gail?
second.
There are some thumbs up for seconds.
Okay.
David, you had your hand up. Do you still want to? Do you need? You're muted still. David Halpern, you're muted still.
Two things. Number one, you can't do this without proper assistance. This is very sophisticated stuff. It needs a professional to help you. You can't do it within what we have. Despite the fact that you have 3 registered architects, I don't think we have the time to do this. So you really need to retain somebody who has the sophistication and the knowledge to do it, number one. Number two, since my electronic hand isn't working, I'm going to tell you now that I'm not voting for cause. And that's because Tuck Edelstein is a former employee of my firm. But I'm sure he's very capable of doing what we're going to be asking him to do.
Thank you. Elaine?
Call the question. I think that's what Rita wanted to do, but I'll do it.
Second.
Michelle has thumbs up a second.
Okay. Then let's call the question and do it the same way where will anyone who is not in favor raise their hand if they're voting no or abstaining?
Which secretary is?
I'll do this.
Billy, I think it's.
Yep. Okay, so raise your hand if you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause. We'll start with Pope Marshall.
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Later.
I'm abstaining.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Barrero.
Abstain.
Okay. Is any? I don't see any other hands. Anyone else want to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause? Malik?
Billy May has her hand up.
Yep, just called her.
I'm abstaining.
Thank you. Marco?
Maybe Halpern is raising the hand. I think he has some problems. Thank you.
Okay, David?
David Halpern, unmute.
David, just reiterating that I'm not voting for cause, as Tuck was a former employee.
Thank you. Rudder?
I just want to say thank you for the explanation, and I'm happily voting yes. I feel much better hearing the explanation.
Alrighty. Anyone else want to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll tally the votes. Thank you. And it looks like on that vote, it's 42 in favor, 4 abstaining, 1 not voting for cause.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, then I think we're all done. I guess Ben Kalos never showed up, huh, Will? It would be a little late
No,
now.
he did.
Well,
He
you
did
guys
text
have
to say
had,
he's not coming.
okay. Oh, he did, okay. You guys have had a lot of stamina and a lot of tough questions and a really varied approach to the whole election, but I do appreciate how patient you were, how thoughtful you were, how you concerned. Actually, the underlying message of all of your comments were how concerned you were for the fairness and integrity of the voting process, and I couldn't agree with that more. So, so everyone should give yourselves a pat on the back for caring about honesty and integrity and responsibility. Having said that, is there a motion to adjourn? Wait, I forgot. Any old business? Any old business?
Oh.
I see Rebecca took her hand down really fast. Any new business? Okay, then is there a motion to adjourn? I'm guessing, Rebecca, that would be you. And Billy, you second.
Okay.
Any objections?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Rebecca. Billy, you second. Any objections?
I second.
Okay, then we'll see you and at land use. If not at a committee meeting in the meantime. Listen, it's Thanksgiving next week. Please, please, please be careful, be safe, enjoy your holiday, and see you soon.